In the past, Shinra was born into a miserable life, and everyone around him rejected him. Even his grandmother refused to take him in after what happened, calling him a demon. This was because of an incident from his childhood, when his entire home burned down due to a terrifying demon. When the firefighters arrived, they were only able to save Shinra, and they told him that his mother and baby brother had died in the fire. But instead of showing him sympathy, people accused him of being the one who caused the blaze. Years later, Shinra was standing at a train station when he suddenly noticed a fire inside one of the train cars. Smoke quickly turned into massive flames, and the alarm sirens began to blare. Shinra said in shock, "Another fire." When the burning car stopped in front of him, he gave a strange smile as a black, charred creature stepped out, its entire body engulfed in flames. Shinra spoke calmly, saying, "You must be in pain." He set his bag down and prepared himself. Suddenly, a voice rang out, "The 8th Fire Force Company has arrived." 4 members entered the scene, led by Captain Obi, all wearing firefighter uniforms. Captain Obi shoved Shinra aside and warned him that the area was too dangerous as the operation to eliminate the Infernal began. He instructed Iris, the nun, to begin her prayer. Iris started chanting, and Lieutenant Hinoa fired an extinguishing round at the Infernal. The creature screamed as the substance struck it, and Captain Obi readied the pike designed to destroy the Infernal's core. Toward it and extinguished it with her abilities. Obi reached the Infernal, drove the pike into its chest, and fired. The Infernal evaporated instantly. Shinra watched in awe, amazed by their teamwork and power. Suddenly, he noticed a beam of light falling from the ceiling toward Iris. Flames burst from Shinra's legs, boosting his speed, and he pushed Iris out of harm's way just in time. Lieutenant Hinoa turned to him and asked, "Who exactly are you?" Shinra apologized for not introducing himself earlier, snapped to attention, and said, "I am the newly assigned member of the 8th Fire Force Company, and I am a 3rd-generation pyrokinetic firefighter." Shinra then accompanied them to the 8th Company headquarters. Upon entering with Hinoa, he met Captain Obi, who asked, "Why do you have that smile in your file photo?" Shinra replied, "When I get nervous, my face twitches, and it ends up looking like I'm smiling." Obi stepped closer to make him even more nervous, causing Shinra to smile wider. Obi laughed mockingly and said, "That must cause you a lot of misunderstandings." Shinra nodded and replied, "Yeah, everyone thinks I'm mocking them." Obi then asked, "Why did you join the Fire Force?" Shinra answered with a tense smile, "I came here to become a hero." Hinoa responded coldly, "A hero? If I remember correctly, people used to call you the devil at the training academy because of what happened when you were a kid." Shinra glared at him but said nothing. Maki and Iris entered the room, and Obi had them stand in front of Shinra as he explained spontaneous human combustion. He said that one day, people began bursting into flames without warning. These victims are called Infernals, and the only way to stop them is by destroying their cores, releasing both their souls and the souls of the humans they once were. This, he explained, is the mission of the Special Fire Force. In addition, they must uncover the mystery behind the cause of human combustion as soon as possible. That night, Shinra couldn't sleep. He lay awake, thinking about his mother and remembering how he once stood beside her as she held his baby brother in her arms. After the tragedy, his grandmother called him a demon and declared she would never raise a dangerous child like him. A firefighter told her, "You shouldn't say things like that in front of your grandson." She replied coldly, "My grandson? Do you know what this boy did? He's had that disgusting smile ever since that day." Suddenly, the alarm rang, and Maki rushed in, telling Shinra that an Infernal had appeared. Shinra jumped to his feet, and they quickly gathered in the captain's room. Obi explained that the Infernal was the wife of a factory owner. Everyone prepared immediately and headed out. Shinra sat in the vehicle, wearing his familiar nervous smile. Obi placed a hand on his head and said, "This is your chance to be a hero." They entered the factory, where flames surrounded them from every direction. A massive wall of fire stood in front of them, and Shinra froze as he stared at the flames. His breathing grew heavy, and his heartbeat raced as memories flooded back, his childhood home engulfed in fire. Obi placed a hand on Shinra's shoulder and said, "I thought you wanted to be a hero. Firefighters don't abandon their team and run. When one of us slows down, we all slow down." Shinra steadied himself, regained his courage, and stood tall. Maki stepped forward and split the wall of flames with her power. Suddenly, fire gathered behind Shinra like a raging tornado and exploded into him, sending him flying. His head slammed into metal, and he lost consciousness. In his mind, he relived the moment from his childhood, his mother burning in front of him, screaming for him to run. After the house turned to ashes, Shinra stood beside a firefighter and heard people whispering that he was the cause of the fire, that even his baby brother had been burned down to the bones. They claimed that since Shinra was a 3rd-generation pyrokinetic, he must have started the blaze. Shinra cried while smiling and told himself, "It wasn't me. I'm sure there was something else in the house besides me, my mom, and my brother." But everyone called him a demon and mocked his twisted smile. From that day on, Shinra could never truly smile again. Shinra snapped awake to Hinawa's voice asking, "Are you really that pathetic, Shinra?" He pushed himself up and saw the factory owner's wife, still surrounded by flames. The team moved into action. Obi and Maki charged forward to distract the Infernal while Hinawa fired at her. She dodged every shot with ease, struck Maki, and leapt toward Obi, engulfing him in flames. Maki quickly rushed back and stripped the fire from Obi's body with her ability. Obi then struck the Infernal with all his strength, sending her flying backward. Shinra dropped to his hands and knees as flames erupted violently from his legs. He launched himself forward at incredible speed. The Infernal fired flames at him, but he skillfully dodged them. Using his fire propulsion, Shinra closed the distance, planted his foot against her chest, and unleashed a powerful blast of flames, piercing her core. Maki stared in awe at the overwhelming strength of a third-generation pyrokinetic as the Infernal evaporated. After they exited the factory, Iris told the owner that Shinra was the one who saved his wife. The man broke down in tears as he thanked Shinra, and the surrounding crowd cheered loudly for the 8th Company. Obi turned to Shinra and said, "From now on, you'll be hearing cheers like that a lot. You've just taken your first step toward becoming a hero." The next day, a new recruit arrived at the 8th Company. Elsewhere, Shinra stood with Obi as Obi explained that a competition would be held among the new recruits soon. "When the time comes, it'll be you and the recruit arriving today representing the 8th Company," he said. Later, Shinra walked down the corridor, lost in thoughts of his past. Suddenly, he came face to face with the new recruit. Shinra smiled instinctively, and the recruit sneered, saying, "Hello, demon." Shinra snapped back angrily, "What is a filthy knight like you doing here?" The recruit grabbed his sword and replied, "I came here to slay the demon." At the same time, Maki and Iris were sitting on the rooftop. Maki lit a small flame in a bowl with a match, then shaped it into a cute, doll-like ball of fire. Iris stared in amazement and said, "You're incredible." Maki shook her head and replied, "I don't agree with you. I'm only a second generation," Maki continued, "so I need an external source to create flames unlike Shinra, who generates fire directly from his body." Suddenly, the rooftop door burst open as Shinra kicked the new recruit straight through it. Maki turned and asked sharply, "Who are you?" The recruit replied proudly, "My name is Arthur, and I am the Night King." Iris blinked and said, "So you must be the third-generation firefighter joining us." Shinra added casually, "He trained with me at the academy. He's always trying to act cool and mysterious, but he's really just an idiot." Hinawa walked in at that moment and noticed the fireball Maki had created. Without hesitation, he poured coffee on it, extinguishing the flame instantly. He fixed Maki with a chilling stare and said, "Firefighters don't play with fire." Then he turned to Arthur and asked, "Are you the new recruit?" Arthur replied rudely, "Yeah." Someone quickly warned him, "Watch your tone. That's the lieutenant." Arthur responded foolishly, "Everyone's equal." The room fell silent, and everyone stepped away from him, expecting a confrontation. Hinawa simply ignored the comment. He then addressed Shinra and Arthur, saying, "The competition is approaching, and I want to see what you can do. You'll fight Maki right now." Both of them stepped forward. Iris looked worried, since Maki would be facing two third-generation pyrokinetics at once. Hinawa reassured her, "There's no need to worry. Maki is an experienced soldier, she knows how to handle this." Shinra ignited flames from his legs, but before he could move, Maki rushed in and struck him under the chin. As he fell, Shinra released fire to jump back, but Maki extinguished the flames with her ability. She struck him again before he could recover, sending him flying off the roof. Just before hitting the ground, Shinra blasted fire from his legs and landed safely on his feet. Arthur smirked confidently and said, "That trick won't work on me." He grabbed the handle of his sword, but there was no blade. Instead, he pumped fire into it, forming a plasma cutter made of tightly compressed blue flames. Maki tried to extinguish it like she did with Shinra, but it didn't work. She dodged skillfully as Arthur swung at her. At the last moment, Arthur stopped and extinguished the blade, saying, "It's impossible for a knight to harm a princess." Maki grabbed his arm, slammed him to the ground, and said, "You forgot one thing, knights kneel before princesses." She then kneed him in the chin, knocking him flat. Arthur stood back up with broken teeth and snarled, "You turned out to be a ghoul, not a princess." Maki exploded in anger, having almost heard gorilla instead of ghoul. Shinra returned and saw how furious she was. He asked innocently what the ghoul looked like, which only made her angrier. Maki transformed the flames from Shinra and Arthur into small fire dolls. Arthur stared in shock when it even worked on his sword. Maki then gathered both of them into one massive fireball. Terrified, they surrendered immediately. Afterward, they headed to the training room to choose a weapon for Shinra. Hinawa handed him an axe that fired special nails designed to pierce infernal bodies. Suddenly, the alarm sounded. Everyone rushed out. Inside the vehicle, Obi handed Shinra the axe and gave strict orders, no one was to draw their weapon. When they arrived at the scene, they found a young girl crying. Her mother had already turned into an infernal, and now her father had ignited as well. The girl was terrified that she would be next. Obi said firmly, "Prepare yourselves." Arthur and Shinra instinctively drew their weapons. Obi immediately pulled them aside into a hallway and shouted, "Didn't I say not to draw your weapons?" Arthur asked why. Obi replied, "Our duty as firefighters is to fight infernal threats, but those infernals were once human. Some firefighters take pleasure in killing them without caring about the feelings of the survivors. What do you think that girl would feel if she saw the weapons you're about to use to kill her father?" He stared at them and said, "Don't draw your weapons again. And if you don't understand that, then I don't need you in my company." "Yes, sir," they replied. Shinra thought to himself, "The captain is right." Just then, a man appeared among the crowd, wearing strange clothing and a black hat that concealed his left eye. His name was Joker. He pulled out a bottle of gunpowder, tossed it into the air, ignited it, and casually played with the flames, shaping them into a sarcastic, grinning face. Everyone was shocked, because the infernal inside the house shouldn't have been capable of doing something like that without awareness. They rushed into the house, only to find the girl's father sitting quietly in a suit, with only his head engulfed in flames. He stared forward without any reaction. Obi noticed a family photo on the table and gently turned it face down. Arthur asked the captain for permission to extinguish him. Shinra stopped him and said, "Wait. He hasn't done anything." Arthur snapped angrily, "You idiot. This man is barely enduring the pain of the flames. We have to free him from this suffering as quickly as possible." Obi gave his approval. Iris began her prayer, and Arthur stepped behind the man, activated his sword, and pierced his heart. At that painful moment, a spark appeared in the ceiling. Everyone escaped except Obi, who stayed behind to retrieve the family photo so he could give it to the girl. The ceiling collapsed onto him, but he emerged unharmed though clearly furious. At the same time, Joker stood nearby, puzzled, muttering to himself, "Something strange is going on inside the fire force." The 8th Company exited the house, and Obi handed the photo to the girl, telling her, "Your father fought the flames bravely and won. I'm sure he and your mother were protecting you from the fire." The girl broke down in tears, mourning both her parents. The next day, Shinra attended the rookie games. There, he spotted Captain Leonardo of the 1st Company, the same man who had been present during the incident when Shinra was a child. Shinra approached and introduced himself, but Leonardo's expression immediately changed. Shinra asked, "Do you remember what happened 12 years ago?" Leonardo avoided his gaze and replied, "I don't have time," before walking away. Shinra followed him and said, "Sorry, I won't take much of your time." Leonardo turned and asked, "Do you know how many fires happen every year?" Then he added coldly, "I'm sorry, but I definitely wouldn't remember something from 12 years ago." Shinra felt certain that Leonardo was hiding something he didn't want to reveal. The competition began, simulating a real fire in a building. The recruits had to overcome obstacles and rescue people inside. Everyone took off running, except Shinra, who stood still. The others looked back and saw him ignite flames and launch himself upward, entering from the 2nd floor. He planned to finish as quickly as possible so he could stop Leonardo and question him again. Suddenly, Shinra saw Joker standing ahead. Joker had already knocked out the actors meant to be rescued and greeted him, saying, "Hello. I got rid of anything that might get in our way. Now give me your full attention." Shinra was stunned. Joker continued, "I know about the fire from 12 years ago, the one where your mother and brother died. Don't you want to know the truth?" Shocked, Shinra demanded, "Who are you? How do you know that?" He shouted at Joker to stay away from the actors. Joker looked surprised that Shinra cared more about them than the story and replied, "Then I'll kill them." He ignited flames, and Shinra rushed forward to stop him. Joker effortlessly dodged Shinra's attacks and said, "I'll tell you what you want if you entertain me a little." He pulled out another bottle of gunpowder and scattered it into the air, seemingly controlling it as it drifted toward Shinra. Shinra stared at it in confusion, then it exploded. Shinra blocked the blast with flames, but Joker closed in instantly and slashed his head. More powder spread and detonated around him, and Joker suddenly reappeared from the smoke, hurling fire straight at him. Shinra's shoulder was injured, and he collapsed to the ground. Joker mocked him, saying, "You turned out to be way too easy." Shinra smiled nervously, and Joker looked genuinely impressed. Joker decided to tell him the truth as a reward. The first revelation hit Shinra like a shock: his younger brother, Sho, was still alive. Hearing this, Shinra screamed at Joker, saying that Sho was just a baby who couldn't possibly have survived on his own. If he was alive, where had he been all these years since the fire? Joker cut him off and calmly asked, "Don't you think someone's been hiding something from you?" Shinra grew furious, flames bursting from his legs. Then Leonardo's face flashed through his mind, and Shinra forced the flames to die down. Joker noticed and asked, "What is it? Did someone come to mind?" Shinra replied angrily, "Even if what you're saying is true, why do you know this? And why are you telling me?" What's your goal? Joker answered, I think you already have doubts about the Fire Force. I want you to stop playing hero and start searching for the truth, or in other words, join me as a devil. Shinra scoffed and replied sarcastically, so you're giving me a choice between being a hero or a devil? He continued, I don't know anything about you except that you hurt innocent people. Shinra charged at Joker with all his strength and this time managed to land a hit. Joker was genuinely surprised, impressed by the true power of the so-called devil. At the same time, Arthur was walking down a hallway when he ran into a girl from the first company named Tamaki. They both heard violent crashing sounds nearby and rushed toward them. Suddenly, Arthur stepped in front of Tamaki and blocked a blast of fire from Joker. Believing Joker was an infernal from the competition, Arthur prepared to fight. Shinra shouted that Joker wasn't part of the competition, but Arthur didn't believe him. He thought Shinra was lying so he could take all the credit and attack Joker with his sword. Joker mocked Arthur's weak technique. Tamaki entered her fire cat mode, flames forming cat ears and a tail, and fired red flames at Joker. Gunpowder drifted in front of her, and Shinra rushed in, pulling her away just before it exploded. Tamaki asked in disbelief, how could they put an infernal this strong in the competition? Shinra snapped back, I told you he's not part of it. Joker laughed and decided to escalate things. He spread his powder throughout the building and said, try saving everyone here. Then he vanished. Shinra began carrying the unconscious actors to safety. Arthur slashed the ceiling, but it didn't open. Tamaki followed up with her flames and broke through. Both of them grabbed onto Shinra, and he propelled them out of the building with fire. A massive explosion tore through the structure, separating them. Leonardo leapt forward and caught Tamaki midair. Obi and the others caught Arthur, while Shinra landed safely using his flames. After the fire was extinguished, Leonardo approached Shinra and thanked him for saving his squad member. Shinra turned away and quietly said it was nothing. Obi then ran up to him and said proudly, well done, hero. Before leaving, Leonardo leaned toward Obi and said, you have an exceptional soldier. That night, only Shinra and Obi remained. Shinra told Obi everything Joker had said and asked him, is the Fire Force really fighting for the people? Obi replied honestly, yes, but the Fire Force isn't unified. He explained that the institution was formed by three powerful organizations, the Holy Soul Temple, which influences the first company, the Tokyo Army, which oversees the second company, and Hajima Industries, which controls the fifth company. Each group exerts influence over different companies. Shinra was shocked and asked, what does Hajima have to do with all this? Obi answered, because all of our equipment is made by Hajima. The Fire Force can't operate without them. He continued, officially, all companies share the same mission, but each one keeps its information to itself. One company might even know the true cause of spontaneous combustion. Most of them are righteous, but some have questionable motives. Shinra asked, then what's our purpose? Obi replied that the 8th company was formed by force through members of the Fire Defense Agency. It consisted of Obi as captain and people he trusted, created specifically to investigate companies 1 through 7 and get closer to the truth. Shinra resolved to stand with him and help however he could. The next day, Hinoa entered the room where Obi and Shinra were talking and said, after analyzing Joker's powder, we discovered it wasn't gunpowder at all, it was ash from infernal corpses. Shinra was stunned, and Obi was furious, because he would never tolerate such disrespect toward the dead. After that, Shinra went back to the office to handle some important paperwork. Suddenly, they received a call from someone who thought they were just regular firefighters and didn't realize they were fire soldiers. The caller reported that a dog was stuck in a tree. Maki sent Shinra and Arthur to handle it. When they arrived, they discovered it wasn't a dog at all, but a man wearing a dog costume. His name was Mamoru. Shinra helped him down and asked why he had climbed up there. Mamoru explained that a firefighter serial killer named Miyamoto had caused public outrage. Because of that case, people had grown angry at the Fire Defense Agency and firefighters in general, taking out their frustration on them. Shinra asked what had happened to that firefighter. Mamoru replied that Miyamoto's trial was taking place that day and that he would most likely be declared innocent due to psychological reasons. At the same time in court, Miyamoto stood before the judge. Just as Mamoru predicted, the judge declared him innocent. The crowd erupted in anger over the unfair verdict. Suddenly, black ash spilled from Miyamoto's hand and ignited. People began cheering him on, but then he transformed into a fully conscious infernal. With a thunderous voice, he threatened to kill everyone. The courtroom emptied in panic, leaving only the judge behind. Miyamoto leaped toward him and snarled, "How dare you decide my fate?" The judge replied in shock, "But I declared you innocent. I set you free." Miyamoto wrapped flames around the judge's neck and strangled him. Elsewhere, Maki informed the 8th company that an infernal had appeared. They immediately mobilized. Inside the vehicle, Hinoa spoke through the intercom, ordering Shinra and Arthur, "Do not move without instructions." As expected, they ignored him. Shinra ignited his flames and took off, with Arthur grabbing on as they pursued the Infernal. Hinawa sighed and said, "Fine. Go stop him." Miyamoto emerged from the courthouse, dragging the judge with him and declaring, "Your life belongs to me now." Shinra collided with him midair at full speed. Arthur flew alongside them, and when they landed, Arthur punched Miyamoto, sending him flying. Miyamoto tried to speak, but Shinra and Arthur kicked him simultaneously. Angrily, Miyamoto demanded, "What exactly is your problem?" Arthur replied coldly, "You." Miyamoto then accused them, saying the college students had chased Mamoru up the tree and that fire soldiers were nothing more than killers pretending to be heroes. At that moment, Maki arrived and hurled a fireball at him, but Miyamoto easily stopped it with his bare hand. Obi was stunned that he was fully conscious. Hinawa explained, when someone clings too strongly to life and becomes an infernal, their personality can remain intact. But I've never seen a case like this. Suddenly, Miyamoto raised his hands and surrendered. He said mockingly, "If you're really not murderers, you'll let me go. After all, the court declared me innocent." Hinawa immediately fired at him and said coldly, "Sorry. I'm not kind enough to forgive trash like you." Miyamoto laughed and shouted, "I knew it. You really are just killers." He fired back and used the chaos to escape. Shinra asked Obi for permission to pursue him. Obi agreed, knowing Shinra was the only one fast enough. As Shinra took off, Hinawa warned him, "Don't listen to anything he says. He's no longer human." Shinra chased Miyamoto into a crowded area. The civilians fled in terror as Shinra caught up and kicked him hard. Miyamoto recovered and hurled a car at him. Shinra kicked it upward, leapt after it, and blasted it with flames, forcing it back down, though it narrowly missed its target. Miyamoto stared in fear, shocked by Shinra's strength. Shinra landed atop the car with a terrifying expression and his familiar twisted smile. At the same time, members of the Fifth Company watched the entire scene unfold from a distance. Their captain, Habana, remarked that the new recruit was a rare talent, but that it would be a waste to simply extinguish a conscious infernal like Miyamoto. She ordered her subordinates to move in and take him away from Shinra. At the same time, Arthur approached Miyamoto, which terrified him even more. Miyamoto begged, "At least say a prayer so I won't suffer when I die." Shinra fell for the trick and replied, "Fine. We'll wait for Iris to arrive." The moment Shinra turned his back, Miyamoto attacked. However, Shinra's reflexes were faster, he sliced off Miyamoto's hand. Shinra prepared to finish him, but suddenly Habana landed in front of him and said coldly, "My company will handle this infernal." "Don't interfere." Shinra shouted back, "Wait. This infernal appeared in 8th Company territory. Don't get involved." Habana asserted her authority, warning him, "Don't oppose a captain." Shinra snapped back, "You're not my superior." Habana activated a strange ability through her eyes, forcing Shinra to collapse to the ground, completely unable to move. She ordered her soldiers to restrain him. Shocked and furious, Shinra yelled, "What are you doing? Firefighters are supposed to protect people." Flames burst from his legs as he broke free of their hold. At that moment, Obi and the rest of the 8th Company arrived and stopped the confrontation. Habana told Obi that a conscious infernal like Miyamoto was extremely rare and that eliminating him so easily would be a waste. Obi replied firmly, "This area falls under the 8th Company's jurisdiction." Habana scoffed, saying that extinguishing Miyamoto would only reduce him to ash. She added that the 8th Company was still new and lacked a scientific research team like hers, and that this infernal was a valuable specimen who could bring them closer to the truth. She then asked Obi, "Will you share the results of our research with you?" With a strange smile, Habana answered her own question. "Of course." Left with no choice, Obi agreed. Suddenly, a 5th Company soldier named Toru interrupted and insulted Obi, calling him a nobody with no talent. Shinra and Arthur lunged at him in anger, but Toru continued mocking them. Maki stepped in and knocked him flat with a single punch. Habana warned Obi that if any of his soldiers interfered again, she would destroy him. Obi stared back and declared, "The flames of the 8th Company will never be extinguished." With that, Habana withdrew with her company and left the scene. The next day, the entire 8th Company gathered on the rooftop for combat training. Hinawa explained that in case they ever had to fight another Fire Force company, like the 5th, they needed to be prepared. During training, Shinra stood beside Hinawa and asked about Habana. Hinawa explained that she was a third-generation pyrokinetic who appeared out of nowhere, rose to captain through illegal research on Infernals, and sold her findings. Shinra was stunned. That meant she might actually know the true cause of spontaneous human combustion. Hinawa added that while they couldn't be certain, Habana definitely possessed enough information to justify her rank. Their plan was to use force if necessary to obtain that information. That night, Habana stood in her laboratory, taking out her anger toward the 8th Company on Miyamoto as she cruelly experimented on him. At the same time, Maki entered Shinra and Arthur's room and asked, "Do you know where Iris went?" Shinra was immediately alarmed. Elsewhere, Iris stood in front of the 5th Company headquarters and calmly told the guards, "Tell your captain that Iris wants to see her." Hibana allowed her inside and asked mockingly, "What does a weak little girl like you want from me?" Iris replied gently, "I don't know exactly what you're doing, but it must be something dangerous, right?" She continued, "This looks like corrupted research. Are these really your morals, my sister?" Hibana snapped, shouting, "Don't call me that again." She grabbed Iris angrily and said, "Everything we were taught was a lie. You're foolish for still believing in it and clinging to your faith." She then added coldly, "I'll use you to lure the 8th Company here and destroy them." Before she could finish, the alarm blared. Shinra had broken into the facility. At the same time, Arthur sliced through a wall with his sword while standing atop the company vehicle to break in. Hinowa ordered Shinra to find Iris immediately while he and Maki held off the 5th Company soldiers. He also ordered Arthur to follow Shinra while they provided cover. Shinra ignited the flames from his legs and soared over the soldiers. Hinowa fired his sniper rifle with precision, aiming at their heads to knock them unconscious without killing them. When several soldiers tried to chase Arthur, Hinowa switched to his pistols, firing controlled shots to clear a path and let Arthur pass. Arthur followed the scorched footprints Shinra left behind, using them to track his position. Suddenly, an elderly man from the 5th Company with a cone-shaped head blocked Arthur's path. He declared, "I won't let you uncover the 5th Company's secrets." Standing beside him was Miyamoto, who had been subjected to experiments and injected with a drug that greatly enhanced his strength. Elsewhere, after Hinowa and Maki finished dealing with the main group, Toru hid nearby and blew a gum bubble that floated toward them. The bubble suddenly exploded, but Maki had anticipated it and pulled Hinowa out of the blast zone. Toru continued inflating gas-filled bubbles from his mouth, detonating them one after another. Hinowa and Maki took cover as the explosions intensified. Using a reflective surface, Maki spotted where the bubbles were coming from. Hinowa fired several bullets into the air and manipulated their trajectories, guiding them toward the hallway where Toru was hiding. The bullets fell harmlessly at first, but that was part of Hinowa's plan. He redirected them again, making them ricochet down the corridor until one struck a floating bubble, which exploded directly on Toru. Meanwhile, Miyamoto unleashed flames from his hands at Arthur, an ability he gained after being injected with the drug. Arthur dodged the attacks skillfully, but Miyamoto charged forward and slammed him into a metal container. Arthur stood up and counterattacked, yet none of his strikes landed. Miyamoto grabbed him again and hurled him away. Surprised, Miyamoto sneered, "You act strong, but you're weak and stupid." Arthur grew frustrated, unable to understand why he couldn't fight properly. He tried again and failed once more. Then he realized the problem: he was holding his sword with his left hand, even though he was right-handed. Arthur switched the sword to his dominant hand, charged forward, and cut Miyamoto cleanly in half with a single strike. At the same time, Maki defeated 2 of the 3 female soldiers from the 5th Company. The last one remained hidden, trembling in fear. Shinra finally reached Hibana's headquarters and burst inside. 3 female guards attempted to stop him, but he took them all down with a single kick and stormed into Hibana's chamber. He found Hibana speaking to Iris in a cruel, intimidating tone. Hibana turned to Iris and said coldly, "Watch closely as I burn him first." Shinra ignited the flames in his legs, but before he could move, Hibana fixed him with her gaze. His flames instantly went out, and he collapsed to the ground, unable to move. Shinra asked weakly, "What did you do to me?" Hibana replied calmly, "You're trapped in a heat haze. Your body is surrounded by the heat I created. It dilates your blood vessels, lowers your blood pressure, and reduces blood flow to your brain. That's why you're dizzy." Shinra forced himself to gather his strength and struggled to his feet, legs shaking. "Shortness of breath and dizziness are just in my head," he said. Hibana scoffed. "No. You're delusional, pretending to be a hero." She looked genuinely shocked that he was still standing. Shinra replied, "This is nothing compared to Hinowa's training." Hibana opened her fan, ignited flames, and launched multiple fireballs at him. Shinra rushed toward her, but she used her eye ability again, throwing off his balance and slamming him into the wall. Shinra struck his own face to snap himself awake. Hibana then created a massive flame construct resembling a flowering tree. The fiery blossoms spread throughout the room, burning everything they touched. Iris cried out, "What you're doing is wrong, it's meaningless." Hibana responded bitterly, "The church raised all of us as orphans. We were taught to devote ourselves to the faith. I was the only one who never took it seriously until the day all the girls who lived with us suddenly burned to death. Only you and I survived. They were more devoted than me, so why did they burn?" She continued, her voice shaking with anger, "That's when I realized everything was meaningless. So I left." Shinra stood up once more and said firmly, "You're a victim of the flames too. I understand some of what you're feeling." Hibana screamed back, "No you don't," and unleashed a storm of burning flowers that engulfed him. Despite the pain, Shinra endured it and crashed to the ground. Hibana stared in disbelief when she realized her heat haze no longer affected him. Shinra glared at her and said angrily, "I'll get back up every time. I won't be defeated by you." His words stunned her, and he continued, "Listen carefully. I'm about to defeat you for your own sake." He then charged forward and struck her with a powerful punch. When Hibana regained consciousness, she found herself lying with her head resting on Iris's lap. Iris spoke gently, saying, "You were our hero back when we were at school." Hibana replied bitterly, "But I had no one. I only had my flames, and even they betrayed me." Shinra stepped closer and said sincerely, "If you ever need a hero, I'm right here. Just call, and I'll come save you anytime." Hibana finally gave in and said quietly, "I've already lost. I won't fight you again." The next day, Hibana stood with Obi as he asked her, "Will the fifth company fully cooperate with us?" She replied, "Not the fifth company, but I will personally cooperate with you." The fifth company is a subsidiary organization tied to Hijima Industries. It won't be easy for your company to oppose them. Be grateful that I'm willing to help. Obi then asked, "We heard you discovered something about spontaneous human combustion." Hibana answered, "Someone is deliberately creating infernals. Not all of them, but some of the samples I studied were clearly different from the rest." Obi clenched his fist and said angrily, "I'll find whoever's behind this and stop them." Hibana informed him that most artificially created infernals tend to appear within the first company's jurisdiction. The following day, Obi decided to send Shinra and Arthur on a covert investigation into the first company. He used the excuse of the new recruit reassignment training system, which allows rookies to temporarily serve in other companies to gain experience. Hinoa briefed them, saying, "There may be someone inside the first company who's creating infernals unnaturally. Your mission is to gather as much evidence as possible." Hibana suggested involving members from other companies as well, since it would look suspicious if only the eighth company carried out the investigation. The next day, Shinra, Arthur, and Maki set out, accompanied by Toru from the fifth company and a second company member named Noto. Upon arrival, they were greeted by Captain Leonardo. Shinra saw this as his chance to confront him about the incident from 12 years ago. He proposed that Leonardo personally evaluate their abilities in a friendly spar. If Shinra managed to land a hit, Leonardo would answer his question. Leonardo replied calmly, "I don't mind," and asked Lieutenant Rekka to assist in the match. At the training yard, Leonardo decided that Noto from the second company would go first against Rekka. Noto became extremely nervous when he saw flames gathering in Rekka's hands, automatically forming fireballs that turned into missile-like projectiles. Rekka grew excited and urged him to attack. Panicking, Noto launched the fireballs uncontrollably. Rekka dodged them all, but several stray shots flew toward Kareem, who was holding a bell and had a horn-like device on his back. Kareem rang the bell, causing the flames to vanish instantly. At the same time, a massive wave of ice burst from the horn. Enraged that he was nearly hit, Kareem formed a huge block of ice and hurled it at Rekka. Arthur approached Kareem in disbelief and asked, "The first company has a firefighter who creates ice instead of fire?" Maki asked what he had just done. Kareem explained, "Thermal cooling through sound. It's a technique that converts fire into sound using pressure, then turns that sound into cold. When it contacts the air, it freezes." Everyone was stunned that such a power even existed. Shinra thought to himself, if someone is creating infernals, it has to be someone from the first company, maybe even all of them. After that, it was Shinra and Arthur's turn to face Leonardo. Arthur confidently shoved Shinra aside, convinced Shinra wouldn't even get a chance after him. He rushed straight at Leonardo. Leonardo raised one hand, and Arthur abruptly stopped, confused. "What are you planning to do with that hand?" he asked. Leonardo replied calmly, "Attack me with everything you have, or it won't be a duel." Arthur warned him, "Don't blame me if you lose your arm." Leonardo answered, "It'll take more than a little fire to cut it off." Arthur attacked and was shocked when Leonardo effortlessly caught and stopped his blade with his bare hand. Leonardo suddenly grabbed Arthur's blade, disabled it effortlessly, and sent him flying across the field. Shinra rushed in immediately, but Leonardo stopped Shinra's kick just as easily, without even moving from his spot. Shinra increased his speed and launched a series of skillful kicks, yet Leonardo tracked every movement and blocked them all with ease. Shinra gathered everything he had and went for a finishing strike, planting his foot on Leonardo's chest just like he did with Infernals and releasing flames at full power. But the attack failed to pierce his body, only scorching Leonardo's uniform. Leonardo slammed his foot into the ground, sending Shinra flying to the far end of the arena. The next day, Obi reviewed research from the fifth company and found a shocking report stating, every infernal core sample contained DNA from a being other than the victim. Hibana added, "In my research, I discovered that all artificially created infernals share something in common: insect traces." Meanwhile, Shinra and the others were eating breakfast at a restaurant when the alarm suddenly sounded. They rushed into their vehicles and headed to the scene. Upon arrival, Captain Kareem informed them that 5 infernal incidents had occurred in the area. He assigned roles, split the teams, and ordered Shinra and Arthur to stay in their designated position before leaving. Suddenly, Shinra sensed an infernal nearby. He turned and saw a seemingly normal man emerging from a hallway, looking unwell. Shinra approached to check on him, only to freeze in horror as a hand reached out from another corridor and pressed a bottle against the man's back. Inside was an insect. As soon as it entered the man's body, he ignited. Shinra immediately chased toward the hallway, leaving the infernal behind. Arthur ran after him but stopped when he hit an invisible barrier. He saw Captain Kareem and Lieutenant Rekka standing there, equally shocked. Arthur drew his sword and demanded, "What are you doing here?" Shinra struck him to silence him and quickly said, "Sorry, we got lost." Tamaki arrived moments later, reporting that all the infernals had been extinguished. When they returned to headquarters, Arthur confronted Shinra and asked why he stopped him earlier. Shinra replied, "We don't know who our enemies or allies really are yet. If we act recklessly, they'll eliminate us. They're stronger than we are." They decided to start their investigation in Rekka's room. Arthur carefully opened the door using flames without leaving any damage. Inside, they searched for evidence. When Arthur opened a desk drawer, they were stunned to find the same insect-filled bottle. They concluded that Rekka was the one creating the infernals. At that moment, Kareem appeared behind them and said calmly, "I left that insect there on purpose when I sensed your suspicion. Now I know the 8th Company is hunting this insect just like I am, trying to find its owner." Shocked, Shinra asked why they should trust him. Kareem pointed to his uniform and said someone else wore the same one. They understood he meant Rekka. Kareem then told them about an incident 2 months earlier, where a group of children burned under unnatural circumstances. At that scene, he had found the same insect. Shinra realized he was referring to the orphanage incident involving Iris and Hibana. At the same time, 2 children were walking alone down a street. Tamaki appeared before them and said gently, "Fires are scary, aren't they? You've heard about the recent incident with the children. What if I told you there's a guaranteed way to never burn? Come with me." Back at headquarters, Kareem sat alone in his room, holding a photo of himself, Rekka, and Leonard. He stared at it sadly before deciding to search for Rekka himself. Elsewhere, Tamaki led the 2 children to an abandoned building, where Rekka stood surrounded by other kids. He declared proudly, "I've finally found a charm that will prevent people from becoming infernals." Tamaki was overjoyed, believing she was witnessing something heroic. One of the children's mothers asked if this charm truly guaranteed their children would never turn into infernals. Rekka answered confidently, "Of course." Feeling proud, he ordered Tamaki to leave. When she refused, he grabbed her violently and pressed her until she lost consciousness. The children's mother panicked and said they had changed their minds. Rekka's expression turned sinister as he replied, "Your decision is unacceptable. Do you want to ruin your children's future?" He then pulled out an insect and forced it into her body. She ignited instantly, and Rekka struck her heart with a flaming punch, killing her. Rekka was frustrated that she died, as he was trying to create an infernal that wouldn't perish. Meanwhile, Shinra and Arthur saw Kareem heading out to find Rekka and insisted on joining him, despite his objections. Left with no choice, he agreed. The children screamed in terror as they watched their mother die. Tamaki regained consciousness and was horrified to realize the truth about Rekka, the man she believed was a hero. He told her, "You're the only one who understands my passion and excitement. Don't stand against me." She shouted back that it was impossible, that he was hurting people and had deceived her. Enraged, Rekka began beating her, screaming that he was right and would not stop until he created the perfect infernal that never dies. He struck Tamaki again to ensure she couldn't resist, then implanted another insect into a boy named Taku. Flames erupted from the boy's eyes and mouth, but strangely, they extinguished almost immediately. High above, Shinra flew through the sky, scanning the area, searching desperately for anything out of the ordinary. Shinra heard Taku scream, but for a moment he thought it was just his imagination. Tamaki asked anxiously, "Won't the boy turn into an infernal?" Rekka replied confidently that the child was perfectly compatible with the insect. "I succeeded," he said. "There are 4 children left." Tamaki begged him to stop, screaming for help from anyone who might hear her. Flames burst from her body uncontrollably and shot outside the building. From above, Shinra spotted the flames instantly. Rekka flew into a rage at what she had done and began beating her again, this time even more brutally, determined to finish her off with one final blow. Suddenly, Tamaki saw Shinra descending from the rooftop, flames propelling him as he crashed down and planted his burning foot squarely into Rekka's face. Shinra turned to her and asked, "Are you okay?" Tamaki broke down in tears, having already lost all hope of surviving. Without warning, Rekka stood up behind Shinra and blasted him away with a flaming punch. Shinra stopped himself midair using his flames, but Rekka charged again and struck him once more. Shinra blocked the attack with his leg and leapt onto Rekka to restrain him, but Rekka ignited his fist and slammed it downward. Shinra caught the blow, spun his leg in a fiery arc, and forced space between them. The two stood facing each other once again. Tamaki watched in disbelief. Shinra was fighting Rekka on equal footing. Strangely, one of the insects reacted to Shinra's flames. Rekka became excited and shouted, "It's trying to return to the flame. That means you're the third person the evangelist has been searching for. I've been burning children for so long to find the right one, I never expected to find him here." Shinra burned with anger but forced himself to think clearly. Since they were evenly matched, he decided to use the structure of the building and his leg-based flame propulsion. Rekka ignited both hands, preparing to counter. Shinra charged in with an E-strike, which Rekka blocked. Shinra immediately kicked off the wall and attacked again. Rekka dodged, but Shinra blasted flames beneath himself, launching upward, then surged forward and continued his assault. Rekka powered up his fist, but Shinra outpaced him, spinning around with aerial movement. Shinra planted himself on the ceiling and dropped down heel first, smashing Rekka's face into the floor. Rekka lay there struggling to breathe. Shinra felt dizzy. The massive amount of flames he'd used had depleted the oxygen in his body. Rekka began to rise again. Shinra demanded that he surrender and turn himself in peacefully. Rekka snarled, "I finally found a suitable child for the evangelist. I'll never give him up." Shinra asked, "Who is this evangelist? Why are you turning children into infernals? And do you have others working with you?" Rekka stood and declared, "I search for children who can increase the number of those with power like mine. All of it is the evangelist's will. Our goal is to turn this planet into a star like the sun." Shinra was stunned by the madness of it. Rekka began spinning his arm like a fan, igniting it until his entire body was engulfed in flames. Shinra warned him that he would burn himself alive. At that moment, Kareem intervened, freezing Rekka's arms solid. Rekka tried to melt the ice, but the more heat he generated, the thicker the ice became until his entire body was frozen. Yen arrived and asked Kareem what was going on. Kareem replied, "We'll find out once we take him back to headquarters." Suddenly, a blazing arrow pierced Rekka's frozen heart. Two figures stood on a distant rooftop dressed in white. One was a sniper named Arrow, and the other was a man called Haumea. He ordered, "There are more soldiers down there. Take some of them out." Arrow fired again but missed. She fired a second shot that nearly struck Kareem, but Yen leapt in front of it, saving him at the cost of his arm. Kareem immediately ordered Shinra to create a smokescreen to block the sniper's line of sight, then told him to identify the enemy's position. Shinra carefully peeked through a window and reported the two figures standing on the opposite rooftop. Kareem ordered Tamaki to extend her flaming tail toward them, then froze it, revealing their exact location. Realizing they had been exposed, the attackers chose to retreat. Kareem was overwhelmed with guilt over Yen losing his arm while protecting him. Yen reassured him calmly, "Don't worry. You're the shield of our company, the most important person we have." After everything settled down, Kareem asked Shinra, "The 8th Company's mission is to investigate the Fire Force itself. And you're definitely going to keep pursuing this evangelist, right?" Shinra answered firmly, "Yes." Kareem nodded and replied, "Then I'll do the same. Let me work with you." Shinra agreed without hesitation. The next day, Obi and Hinawa took Shinra, Tamaki, and Hibana with them to attend a captain's meeting. As they approached the location, Shinra was stunned by the sight of Tokyo's thermal power plant Amaterasu. At the entrance, Obi ran into Lieutenant Kareem and welcomed him. Kareem thanked Obi for what the 8th Company had done and officially announced his cooperation with them in the investigation. Everyone entered the building except Hibana. She was stopped by a masked man, the captain of the 3rd Company, Dr. Giovanni. He said casually, "I thought you were aligned with Hajime like I am, but it seems you spend quite a bit of time with the 8th Company." Hibana ignored him and walked inside without responding. Inside the hall sat Captain Leonardo of the 1st Company, the 2nd Company Captain, Giovanni of the 3rd, Captain Igo of the 4th, Hibana of the 5th, Captain Kyoko of the 6th, and Captain Shinmon of the 7th Company. Shinmon lounged disrespectfully, showing no regard for the meeting. Obi quietly told his squad, "The 7th Company is here even though they never attend anything." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Emperor Raffles III. After taking his seat, he announced, "The Tokyo Army General and the head of the Fire Defense Agency have confirmed that individuals are moving in secret and threatening our nation. All fire force companies are ordered to eliminate the traitors." Captain Shinmon mocked the Emperor's words, prompting Leonardo to threaten him. "Show some respect, or I'll eliminate you myself." Shinmon stood up and replied, "The 7th Company is just a group of fools guarding our own district. I don't recall ever pledging loyalty to the Empire." He then walked out, declaring they would do as they pleased. The Emperor attempted to stop him, but Shinmon ignored him and left. The Emperor then turned to Shinra and asked, "You possess an Adala burst, correct?" Shinra replied that Rekka had mentioned it before, but he didn't know what an Adala burst actually was. The Emperor explained, "It is the pure, original flame. You must have seen it on your way here, Amaterasu itself. It is the source of fire that supplies all energy to the Tokyo Empire. Giovanni spoke next, stating that the evangelist was attempting to gather all Adala bursts. He added that although they didn't yet understand the difference between an Adala burst and ordinary fire, the evangelist clearly did. He suggested that Shinra should be secured, since the evangelist would surely come for him again. Shinra immediately objected, saying, "The fire force exists to protect people. I can protect myself just fine. Other companies have no right to interfere in 8th Company matters." Hibana leaned toward Obi and whispered that the 3rd Company wanted to take Shinra as a test subject. Obi addressed the Emperor directly, declaring that the 8th Company would be responsible for Shinra's protection. The Emperor agreed and ordered them to take good care of him. After the meeting, Obi and the others returned to the 8th Company headquarters. Shinra, however, stayed behind at Amaterasu, asking to see it alone. As he stood there, deep in thought about the evangelist, he suddenly heard Joker's voice behind him. Joker told him, "The Adala burst is one of the pure flames powering Amaterasu, but that same flame is also the reason this world is headed for destruction." Shinra prepared himself to fight, but Joker raised a hand and said, "Relax. I'm not here to fight today. I just want to talk." He continued, "I came to give you information you want. Keep chasing the evangelist, and you'll find your brother there. He's the commander of the Knights of the Ashen Flame, serving directly under the evangelist." Shinra was stunned, unable to believe that his brother was alive and serving someone like that. He demanded, "What do you mean?" But Joker was already gone. Shinra returned to the 8th Company headquarters, where everyone gathered together, poring over documents in search of any clues about the evangelist or the mysterious group dressed in white. That night, they took a short break. Hinawa stood up to cook and ordered Shinra to help him. In the kitchen, Hinawa asked quietly, "Are you doing okay?" Shinra was caught off guard. Hinawa continued, "If it's hard to talk to me as your superior, then think of me as someone who truly cares. I love the 8th Company, and I want you new recruits to trust us." Shinra replied sincerely, "I love the 8th Company too. And I trust you and Captain Obi." Once the food was ready, Shinra went to call everyone. Obi asked Hibana about Shinra, and she confidently replied, "Don't worry. You didn't recruit weak people." They all sat down together to eat. During the meal, Shinra decided to tell them everything Joker had said. Arthur questioned it, asking, "But should we really trust Joker's words?" Obi then asked Shinra, "Do you want to believe your brother is alive?" Shinra answered without hesitation, "Yes." Obi nodded and said, "Then we'll believe it too, and we'll help you find him." The next day, Obi gathered the company and showed them records of incidents involving people dressed in white robes. Hinawa added details about the 8th Company's very first infernal suppression mission, where they encountered an infernal completely dressed in white. Although they extinguished it without casualties, the incident raised many suspicions. The victim had no known relatives, and the company she worked for immediately seized all her personal belongings. Obi continued, "After investigating, we discovered that the company still exists in Asakusa, an area under the 7th Company's jurisdiction." Elsewhere, Shinmon returned home, where he was greeted by Conro, the 7th Company's lieutenant. Conro informed him that the 8th Company had requested permission to investigate the area in connection with the evangelist. Shinmon dismissed it immediately, saying, "No. That's too much trouble. Ignore them." At that moment, Obi entered the house and said calmly, "We're already here." Shinmon glared at him and asked, "What are you doing here?" Obi replied, "I heard you hate formalities, so we came directly." Shinmon refused to let them search the area, stating that he had no interest in the evangelist and didn't want outsiders disturbing the residents. Obi countered, "The evangelist is creating infernals. There's a real chance the people here could be next." Shinmon scoffed and asked sarcastically, "Is that what the Empire claims?" He added, "I've never seen anyone here turned into an infernal, and I'm not naive enough to believe that story." Shinra stepped forward and said, "I saw it with my own eyes." Shinmon snapped back angrily, "I don't care what one of the Empire's dogs thinks he saw." Shinra lost his temper and replied, "I don't want to hear that from a suspicious bystander. I heard you're the strongest fire soldier, strong enough that even the Empire recognizes your town's forces. Now it's my turn to defeat you and make you acknowledge me." Before things could escalate further, the town bells rang, signaling a fire. Shinmon turned and said, "Leave this place before I get back." When he learned who had burned, his expression darkened. It was the same man who had invited him out for drinks that night. The entire town sprang into action. Shinmon grabbed a broom-like staff and hurled it with tremendous force. The broom ignited midair, crashing into the infernal and destroying several buildings. Shinra stared in shock, not just at Shinmon's actions, but at the villagers cheering in approval. Shinmon took another broom, set it ablaze, and rode it through the air toward the infernal. The townspeople tossed him more brooms, which he lit and hurled, causing even more destruction. Shinra asked in disbelief, "How can he do this to people's homes?" An elderly woman replied calmly, "Homes can be rebuilt." But when someone turns into an infernal, their life is already over. This destruction is our way of honoring the one who burned. Arthur asked, how can he both generate fire and control it at the same time? Conro explained, because he's a compound user, both a second and third generation fire soldier. Shinmon approached the infernal, placed his hand into its chest, and extinguished it, saying softly, you endured well. Shinra stood atop a nearby building with the elderly woman, watching the scene unfold. She thanked him for staying until the end and asked, you probably think Shinmon's way is strange and wrong, don't you? She continued, in this town, we destroy buildings to honor those who burn. Everyone fears fire and transformation, but here, we all hope Shinmon will be the one to extinguish us if that day ever comes. Afterward, Shinmon assigned the townspeople tasks to rebuild the village. Shinra suggested to Obi that they help with the reconstruction, and Obi agreed, knowing they wouldn't be able to continue their investigation until the rebuilding was finished. Shinmon noticed the 8th Company members working alongside the villagers, using their abilities and putting in genuine effort. Meanwhile, Arrow, Heron, and another member of their group named Yona were watching from inside one of Asakusa's buildings. They were surprised that the 8th Company had entered 7th Company territory. Heron asked Arrow what the evangelist had decided about this situation. She replied, we were ordered to eliminate them. We failed last time, so now they're preparing insects and setting traps. By sunset, Shinmon was applying cold compresses to Conro's burns and said quietly, you should have been the captain. Conro replied calmly, someone who can't fight doesn't deserve to be captain. Shinra ran in, chasing Hika and Hina, the youngest members of the 7th Company. They complained to Shinmon about him, but Shinra laughed and said he was just playing with them. Conro thanked Shinra for helping repair the village and for keeping Hika and Hina company. Shinra noticed the burns covering Conro's body and, seeing how busy everyone was, took the children and left. Conro then told Shinmon that the 8th Company members were genuinely kind and unlike other Fire Force companies. He asked, why don't we cooperate with them? Shinmon replied with a question of his own, is that what you'd do if you were captain? Conro answered, you're not captain just because you're strong. Shinmon sighed and said, I know. I'm not the right person to carry responsibility for others. But for your sake, I'll help the 8th Company. Shinmon went out to find Shinra. Shinra asked about Lieutenant Conro, and Shinmon explained that when third-generation users push past their limits, their bodies begin to burn and eventually turn to ash. He then said, I want to meet your captain. That night, Shinmon set out to meet Obi. On the way, he overheard 2 people disguised as Obi and Hinawa saying, good thing we succeeded in turning that man into an infernal. We have to keep going until we turn the whole town. Shinmon exploded with rage. Flames surged from his body, shooting into the sky. Elsewhere, the real Obi and Hinawa were running as Shinmon chased them, intent on killing them. He hurled objects at them, igniting everything with flames as he shouted, don't lie. I saw you with my own eyes and heard you myself. Shinra intervened, blocking the flames and shouting, I don't know what you saw, but calm down. Shinmon roared back, shut up. There's no reason to calm down. He accused Obi and Hinawa of planning to turn the entire town into infernals. Obi tried to explain it was a misunderstanding, but Shinmon refused to listen and demanded they fight to prove the truth. At the same time, 2 members of the White-clad group stood on a rooftop, disguised as Obi and Hinawa, silently watching the chaos unfold. The battle began, Shinmon against the entire 8th Company. Despite their numbers, they couldn't keep up with his overwhelming strength and speed. Hinawa fired at him, but Shinmon stopped the bullets effortlessly. Arthur and Tamaki attacked together while Hinawa fired again. Shinmon blocked every bullet, shoved Tamaki aside with one hand, and grabbed Arthur, using him as a shield to deflect the gunfire. Shinmon then ignited his arm and swung it through the air. For a moment, nothing happened, then a massive blast of fire struck Arthur, slamming him into Tamaki and sending both of them flying. Enraged, Obi joined the fight. Shinmon demanded, why did you turn someone from my town into an infernal? Obi replied, no matter what I say, you won't listen. So stop talking and fight me. Shinmon fired multiple fireballs, which Obi blocked using a metal shield. Confused, Shinmon asked, why don't you neutralize the flames? Obi charged forward and replied, because I can't. I don't have any powers. Shinmon was stunned. Aren't you afraid of fire? Obi answered honestly, of course I am. It's hot. Obi attacked again, but Shinmon struck his helmet with flames, knocking him back. Shinmon shouted, then why would someone who knows the terror of fire turn others into infernals? Obi tried once more to explain, but Shinmon angrily ignited 5 metal rods and yelled, I saw it myself. He hurled them at Obi, who dodged and tossed fire-extinguishing grenades in response. Obi rushed forward, but Shinmon struck him again, forcing Obi to drop a smoke bomb. Obi attacked once more, throwing grenades at Shinmon's feet and forcing him to retreat. Obi leapt forward and tossed the smoke grenade, but Shinmon flipped him to the ground and ignited his helmet. Obi slammed his helmet straight into Shinmon's head. Afterward, Obi stood up and removed the helmet himself. Shinra stared in amazement, shocked that Obi possessed that much raw strength. At that moment, Kanro staggered in, barely able to walk, and asked what had happened. Meanwhile, the fight between Obi and Shinmon still hadn't completely ended. Shinmon prepared to finish it with one final, devastating strike. Kanro rushed forward and placed himself in front of Shinmon, but Shinmon refused to stop and raised his arm to strike anyway. Kanro grabbed his hand using his fire suppression ability, even though he knew he wasn't supposed to use it. His body trembled under the strain. Shinmon ordered Hika and Hina to bring cold compresses. Despite his condition, Kanro asked Shinmon to at least listen to what the 8th Company had to say. Shinmon finally calmed down and brought everyone into the house, where he lay down, weakened and exhausted. Kanro asked, "Where were you when Shinmon saw what he saw?" Hinoa replied, "The captain and I were buying supplies at a shop in town." Shinra looked confused and said, "But Captain Obi told me to find Shinmon and meet him in the alley." Obi shook his head and replied, "I don't remember saying that." Shinmon grew angry again and decided to personally go to the shop to confirm whether Obi and Hinoa had truly been there. He ordered everyone not to leave until he verified their innocence. After he left, Shinra asked Kanro about the condition of his body. Kanro answered sadly that he simply wasn't strong enough, but insisted Shinmon hadn't done anything wrong. Shinra was surprised and said, "But Captain Shinmon seems to regret it deeply." Kanro then told them what had happened. One day, a massive number of townspeople suddenly turned into Infernals all at once. Shinmon and Kanro fought side by side, but Shinmon reached his limit and could barely breathe. Then a demon emerged from the flames, far stronger than any ordinary Infernal. In that moment, Kanro shoved Shinmon with all his strength into a nearby house. Shinmon crashed through the wooden wall and lost consciousness, while Kanro stayed behind to face the demon alone. At dawn, Shinmon woke up to find the battle over. He rushed outside and found Kanro sitting on the ground, his body covered in burns. Shinmon blamed himself and scolded Kanro for not letting him fight. Kanro replied calmly, "Because I couldn't afford to lose you at a time like that." Shinmon shouted, "Then who will protect the town afterward?" Kanro grabbed him firmly and said, "You will." Soon after, the fire defense forces arrived late. The captain of the 4th Company offered Kanro the position of captain of the 7th Company. Shinmon grew angry, believing they were only doing it out of fear of their strength. Kanro, however, responded calmly and asked, "What would we gain from that?" Captain Ago replied, "Financial support, equipment, supplies, and skilled personnel." Kanro said, "Let me think about it." Afterward, Shinmon confronted Kanro angrily and asked, "Are you planning to become a dog of the Empire?" Kanro answered, "If we'd been an official company back then, the damage would have been far less. And if the Empire wants to use us, then we can use them too." Shinra asked in surprise, "You did all that for Captain Shinmon?" Kanro replied, "Shinmon is the one meant to shoulder responsibility. I don't regret sacrificing my body for him, and if I had to sacrifice my life, I would." Shinra stepped forward and said, "Don't say that. I lost my family and everything precious to me long ago. To me, there's no such thing as a cheap life or a valuable life. Every life matters. That's why I want to be a hero who protects everyone. So before you ever sacrifice yourself, Lieutenant Kanro, use me. I want to help." Kanro thanked Shinra for his sincerity and agreed to rely on him if the time ever came. Elsewhere, Shinmon found the townspeople arguing in the streets, accusing one another of terrible things. Strangely, every accused person denied doing anything wrong. Shinmon began to sense that something unnatural was happening in the town. At the same time, Shinra and the others arrived to find Hika and Hina fighting fiercely, each insisting the other wasn't real. They tried to calm them down, but suddenly Arthur snapped and kneed Hika in the face, grabbing her and throwing her into the wall. Hina cheered in excitement, while the rest of the company erupted in anger at Arthur for hitting a child. Arthur shouted in confusion, "How can you not see it? That's a short old man in disguise." They looked again and saw Hika. As they struck her again, bubbles suddenly appeared on her face, and she transformed into an elderly man. Kanro was stunned. Meanwhile, inside one of the buildings, Yona stood before a strange man, reshaping his face with fire. Dissatisfied with the result, Yona angrily overheated his head until it exploded. Arrow stopped him, saying, "We don't have enough manpower for you to waste it like that." She added, "The insects are ready. We have to begin the plan as soon as possible." Back in the town square, Shinmon stood surrounded by chaos, unable to understand why people were suddenly mistrusting and accusing one another. He realized it was the same phenomenon that had occurred with the 8th Company. Suddenly, flames erupted across the town as people began turning into Infernals. From afar, the white-cloaked figures watched quietly, hoping the insects would find a compatible host, someone who would burn endlessly and become a true demon. The 8th Company stood confused by what was happening, but Obi refused for the company to intervene because the area was under the jurisdiction of the 7th Company and interference wouldn't be official. Also, out of respect for the townspeople who didn't want to be extinguished in the imperial way, he ordered them to evacuate people and protect them from the Infernals only. Suddenly, an arrow headed toward Maki, but Tamaki quickly saved her. Another arrow followed, and Maki stood to block it, but it was far stronger and pierced her barrier. Before it reached her, she turned it into a cute small fireball like she always did, greatly reducing its power. Shinra flew off to find where the shot came from. Hinawa ordered Arthur to follow him. Suddenly, Shinra saw an arrow heading for him and dodged quickly, noticing his trajectory had shifted, so he tried to predict the source. Meanwhile, Conro was threatening the old man who had disguised himself as Hika, but he refused to say anything and suddenly dropped a bottle of insects and turned into an infernal. Hinawa shot him quickly and extinguished him. Conro was surprised by the bottle that fell from him. Obi entered telling him they failed to evacuate the residents because they refused to take orders from the 8th Company. At the same time, Shinman tried to tell the townspeople not to run in that direction, but no one listened to him. Shinra was still searching for the sniper and suddenly passed beside her when Arrow shot an arrow hitting him. Shinra flew up again and saw her jumping behind the building. He rushed toward her, but it was a trap and Heron attacked him with a dagger. Shinra grabbed his hand, but Heron restrained him and Arrow aimed at him. Arthur intervened, blocking her arrow with his sword. Arrow was surprised he could deflect it. Shinra pushed Heron away. Arrow fired another arrow and Arthur blocked it. She was shocked by the sword's strength. Arthur and Shinra argued about staying out of each other's way. Heron charged at them, kicking both. They got up again, still arguing. Heron attacked once more, clashing with Shinra. Shinra dodged and accidentally hit Arthur. Arrow fired explosive arrows at them missing, but the smoke blinded them. Arthur noticed Heron coming, blocked his strike, and fired flames from his leg at him. Then they decided to cooperate to defeat them. They started their attack and this time landed the hits. Heron shielded Arrow from Arthur's sword, telling her to escape quickly. Shinra prepared to chase her, but Heron confronted them, pulling out an insect and putting it in his mouth. Meanwhile, Conro climbed to a high place, calling for Shinman. Finding Shinman facing an infernal, he felt sad and said, "Let me end your suffering," leapt on him, knocking him down, and thrust his hand into his heart, extinguishing him. After that, Shinman rode his broom and went to Conro, telling him there was a misunderstanding happening and everyone was in a state of panic. Conro explained that someone was changing people's faces and asked Shinman to tell the townspeople that himself because no one would listen to anyone else. Conro replied, "No, that's not my duty. Everyone is waiting for the great man who will bring order to the chaos. It's time you make your decision." Shernan told him to come down from the tower. Shin climbed to the highest point of the tower. While people were fighting each other and Yona was delighted by what he had caused among them, they suddenly heard an explosion and all looked to the sky to see Shinman flying with the tower using his flames, shouting at the top of his voice, "Listen! People transforming to look like us and deceive us. There are no way to tell them apart, and we won't solve anything this way." Everyone cheered for Shernan and got fired up. The atmosphere changed instantly. Conro silenced them and bowed with the 7th Company asking for Shinman orders. Shinman laughed saying, "All of you start hitting each other. It doesn't matter who real or fake. The 7th Company will handle the Infernals." Everyone got excited and started actually fighting with all their strength. On the other side, Heron had turned into an Infernal, saying, "This area is powerful and there are high chance a demon will appear, but why not me?" Suddenly, horns grew from his head and he turned into a demon. Shinman saw what happened from his place in the sky and got excited that he found a worthy opponent. Shinra was shocked at the sight of the demon before him, remembering it looked like the one that invaded his house when he was a child. Suddenly, Heron rushed at him and Arthur pushed Shinra away, blocking the strike, but he couldn't withstand it and kept being forced back. Shinra leg reacted to the demon and turned skeletal with a horn sound echoing from it. He grew tense, not understanding what was happening. Arrow was shocked and said that in Adola Link, "You truly don't belong to the Fire Force. Dunce, you're a demon and that flame of yours is a flame that destroys people." Arthur, who was blown away by Heron, interrupted asking Shinra to help him. Shinra looked beside him and didn't see Arrow. Heron threw a large fireball at him and Heron punched Shinra with flames. Arthur attacked with his sword but was surprised it didn't pierce because Heron's body was incredibly solid. Suddenly a fireball hit Heron's face fired by Shinman, who placed 2 burning brooms beside Heron saying, "I'm your opponent." He told Shinra and Arthur not to interfere in this fight because of what happened in the past and the demon that caused Conro burns. The demon then rushed toward him at full speed. At the same time, Hina, Maki, and Tamaki were searching for Hika. They found her igniting the men who tricked her and didn't give her candy. Hina confronted her and they both transformed into firefoxes, burning down the kidnappers together. A fierce clash began between Shernan and Heron. Shernan blocked all of his attacks easily with his hands and threw him away. Heron launched a fireball at him and Shinman blocked it effortlessly. Arthur and Shinra were stunned by Shernan's power. Shen charged toward Heron, intending to extinguish him, but was surprised at how unnaturally tough he was. He remembered that Conro back then had created a massive crater in the ground with his flames to defeat the demon. So, he knew he needed that much power to stop him. He grabbed a broom and flew toward Heron, taking him up into the sky. Meanwhile, Conro saw Arrow on a rooftop aiming at Shinman. He tried to stop her with his flames, but grew too exhausted and fell from a high place, unable to move. He remembered when Shinra told him to rely on him and shouted his name at the top of his lungs. Shinra didn't hear him but felt a pulse through the flames in his leg. Sensing what Conro wanted, he looked to the sky and saw an arrow heading toward Shinman, flying at full speed to catch it, accelerating faster and faster. Arrow was surprised by his speed and controlled the arrow with her eyes. So Shinra couldn't change its course. But Shinra struggled against the arrow with his leg, saying to himself, "My flame is a flame that protects people and I will be a hero." He pushed himself until he finally deflected the arrow. Shinman reached a high altitude and released Heron, then turned back. He fired burning brooms at him, then struck him hard with fire, but it still didn't finish him, so he said, "I'll borrow your technique." Conro pulled back and lunged at Heron with his palm, thrusting massive flames that vaporized him completely. Shinra saw Shin falling from the sky and caught him. Shinman told him, "I've used up all my strength." And the 7th company had extinguished all the Infernals in the town. The next day, the town repairs began again. Afterward, Shinman thanked the 8th company for everything and told them, "From now on, I'm with you." On the other side, Arrow and Yona arrived at the headquarters of the white-clad Knights of the Ashen Flame, reporting to their leader, Shinra brother, that Heron was dead. Yona continued, "But a new demon was also born here." Arrow said, "We confirmed that the Adola burst possessed by the 8th company recruit is linked to the demon." Sho replied, "I want him at any cost. That what the evangelist needs, it would be a waste to leave him in the fire force." He drew his sword and decided to go out himself this time. At the same time, Obi entered the 8th company headquarters angry after hearing from Habana that a new member was being forced to join them. She also told him Hayama said the 8th company couldn't stay without a science division, so they stormed the place by force. When he reached his office, he found Victor, Joker assistant, waiting for him there, though no one knew that fact yet. Victor told them the Empire had ordered all companies to strengthen their forensic divisions. Obi replied, "It's true. Our science team is lacking and we were searching, but Captain Habana of the 5th company is helping us until we find one." Victor said, "But you can't rely on another company captain forever. That's why I came from Hayama." He introduced himself and stood to salute. Habana felt he was suspicious. Kanaba embarrassed him, saying the salute is with your right hand. But Victor acted normally as soon as he saw Shinra. He jumped excitedly, saying, "Since I'm part of the science team, show me your leg." Shinra tried to back away and Habana stopped him from touching him. Then Victor noticed the company didn't have an engineer either. Asking who maintains your vehicles and equipment. Obi replied, "We've heard of a great engineer named Vulcan." He asked Hinawa, "Did you contact him?" Hinawa said, he didn't answer. Kabana was surprised they wanted to recruit that man because every company had tried and he refused them all. Hinawa said, "Then we'll have to visit his workshop." Habana warned them not to do that because he hates Hayama completely. Meaning he surely hates the Fire Force too since they deal with it, Obi thought. And ordered Shinra and Arthur to take Iris with them, go see him, and make sure he's suitable for the 8th company. Victor watched, noticing that the 8th company was different from the others who tried to win Vulcan over with money and prestige. Later, they went to Vulcan and found him living in a scrapyard. They stood at his door introducing themselves. The door opened and a mechanical hand threw a soda can at Shinra head, then another at Arthur. They got really annoyed, but were interrupted by a boy named Yu, who introduced himself. He guessed they came to recruit Vulcan into the Fire Force. He called to Vulcan from behind the door, saying he brought the materials he requested. Vulcan came out and when they called to him, he threw more soda cans at them, saying, "I'll never help anyone from the Fire Force get out of here." You told them many people from Hayama and the Fire Force came trying to recruit him. But he refused them all because of that. Hayama interfered with his work and made the traders he dealt with stop supplying him materials. Yet, I think there's another reason for his hatred of Hayama and the Fire Force. Shinra confidently said, "We're the 8th company, not like the others, so please convince him just to listen to us." At least you noticed they were truly different from the others and let them into the workshop without Vulcan permission. They saw a woman named Lisa living with Vulcan. They watched him working and were amazed by his skills. When he saw them, he called to you to bring soda for the guests. Shinra thanked him, but Vulcan suddenly threw a can at him, saying, "In your dreams, what are you doing here?" They were interrupted by an alarm, and Lisa told Vulcan that person came again. And he went outside to find Giovanni. Standing there, Shinra was shocked. Vulcan asked Giovanni angrily, "You were the one who stopped my supply line, right?" Giovanni replied coldly, "So, you finally realized you can't achieve anything with just blueprints. Enough stubbornness. Join the 3rd company." We have all the tools you need, Vulcan replied furiously. I'll never work under your command, Giovanni threatened. This is your final warning, Vulcan asked. Are you going to kill me like you killed my father and grandfather? Giovanni changed the subject asking, are you still chasing your foolish dream? Vulcan shouted, don't mock my dreams after you left for power and money. And walked away. When Shinra entered, he asked, are they pressuring you? Telling him the 8th company was founded to investigate the other companies. We're different from those under outside organizations, and we truly want to save people. That's why we want your help. Suddenly, Arthur touched a strange gadget, and water sprayed out. Iris saw buttons around and was drawn to them, pressing them. Vulcan tried to stop her, but she couldn't resist and activated his strange weapons and inventions. Vulcan laughed, realizing they were indeed different from the others, and decided to show them his favorite invention made by his father. They went outside the workshop and he activated it, turning the surroundings into an ocean full of fish. They were amazed. He changed the scene to a forest with animals and birds. Iris cried from the beauty of what she saw. Vulcan told them about his dream to create an energy source that would bring the world back to life and restore extinct animals. Shinra was thrilled by his words, realizing he was a perfect fit for the 8th company and shared their ideals. Shinra told him, I'm sure you'll love our team. Could you come meet our captain even just once? But Vulcan refused, saying he didn't want to work under Hayama. No matter what, Lisa looked upset, saying he always liked this. Shinra asked, how long have you been with him? She told him, when she was little, her parents turned into Infernals, so she ran away and hid in a truck in the scrapyard, and he found her and took care of her. She said he loves helping others. Arthur saw a grave in the scrapyard and asked about it. You said it was the grave of his father and grandfather who had turned into Infernals. Shinra asked, is Vulcan suspicious of Giovanni? You said Vulcan's grandfather had 2 apprentices, Vulcan and Giovanni, after they both died under strange circumstances. Giovanni went to work for even though their teacher had forbidden it no matter what. And that probably because Vulcan family has a long history with Hayama. Lisa asked them to give up because he'd never agree no matter what. And you apologized to them. Suddenly, Shinra heard the horn sound again, feeling the same vibration in his leg he felt when Conro called for help. But this time, he sensed murderous intent coming from Giovanni. He told Arthur and Iris, we can't leave here. The next day, Vulcan placed 2 soda cans in front of his father and grandfather grave because they loved them. He sat for a while talking to them, assuring them that work was going well and that he had a family now in Lisa. Then he went back into the workshop and talked with you about how inventions must be durable and unbreakable. Unlike the Amaterasu project that powers the whole city afterward, Lisa called them for dinner, saying the food was ready when they sat down. Vulcan told them, we're a family and our bonds won't break no matter what. They both replied, of course. On the other side, Shinra had told Iris and Arthur about Giovanni's murderous intent. And although Arthur didn't completely believe him, they decided to take precautions. Shinra told them, go tell Vulcan and convince him while I look for Giovanni and see what I can find. At the same time, Giovanni stood with 2 people, telling them, go kill Vulcan, but first take off those fake fire soldier uniforms. When they removed them, it turned out they were from the white-clad knights named Flail and Mirage. Arthur and Iris reached Vulcan workshop and warned him about what was going to happen, but he didn't believe them because he hated them so much that he wanted to kill them himself. At that moment, you looked through a gap in the door and saw the workshop surrounded by soldiers all in white. Vulcan was surprised they brought such numbers for him, even though he had no abilities. Arthur wondered what Shinra was doing all this time. Meanwhile, Shinra was in the forest, puzzled by how quiet the place was with no one around. Giovanni suddenly appeared, extending his mechanical arm and choking him. Shinra used his flames on his leg and escaped his grip. Giovanni fired his arm again, but Shinra dodged this time and followed the cable to find its source, but found nothing because Giovanni was up in a tree launching 2 wires from his back, electrocuting Shinra, but the electricity didn't affect him. Giovanni asked in shock, are you a monster or what? This is 2 million volts. He increased the current, and this time, Shinra couldn't handle it and lost consciousness. Giovanni informed the White-Clad that he found the Adola Burst user and told them to come get him, saying, all that left now is to get the Yamataruki from Vulcan. At the same time, Vulcan told Iris and Arthur, you're fire soldiers, do something. Arthur replied, I don't have the proper gear to use my power, and in this outfit, I don't feel any chivalry, so I can't do anything. Vulcan thought of how to make him feel knightly. And Arthur explained how his sword was made. So Vulcan built him a similar sword. Flail told Mirage, stay where you are and don't lift the siege at all. I'll go in and kill him. But suddenly Arthur appeared wearing a ridiculous outfit with a plastic donkey head between his legs. Despite his appearance, Arthur imagined himself as a true knight riding a horse and felt more heroic than ever. He drew his plasma sword and Iris was surprised it was much stronger than his previous one. Arthur slashed a fiery wave from afar with his sword, vaporizing all the siege soldiers, revealing that Mirage was creating illusions with his fire abilities. Flail was shocked since no one had informed them there'd be someone like that in the workshop. He grabbed a handle with a chain and pumped fire into it, turning it into a fiery hammer. He swung it and charged at Arthur, aiming it at him, but Arthur blocked it. Mirage created clones that jumped at him, but Arthur vaporized them all. Flail attacked again, and Arthur broke the fire into just a chain. Vulcan was stunned that Arthur was that strong despite looking so dumb. Suddenly, Mirage created a clone identical to Arthur standing in front of him. Arthur was shocked at how strange and stupid he looked. He lost the sense of chivalry he had felt and became much weaker. Flail hit him with the hammer, sending him flying. As he flew, Arthur realized what he thought was a horse was actually a donkey, and was even more shocked. He lay on the ground in despair, but he regained his courage, grabbed the handle, and filled it with flames again, though it was weaker than before because his chivalry had faded. Vulcan tried to use the situation, telling Lisa and you to escape through the back door. While the siege was broken, Lisa refused, saying, "We're family." Vulcan said, "I can't run and leave Arthur fighting here for me." She asked, "Why are they after you?" He replied, "I don't know, but Hayama took everything from me, my family and my technology." You was surprised by the word technology. And Vulcan shocked him by saying that Amaterasu itself was originally created by his family, but Hayama stole it. He asked Lisa and you to take the vehicle he built and escape quickly. Suddenly, Lisa fired flames at him, making him fall to the ground. And you asked in shock, "What are you doing?" She shot him, too, threatening Iris that she'd kill them if she interfered, revealing the shocking truth that she was actually a servant of the evangelist and had been spying on him all along. That when he found her as a child, it had been a trick with a terrifying look. She told him, "Give me the Amaterasu key." But Vulcan didn't understand what she was talking about. Still shocked and unable to believe her words, she started hitting him, demanding he tell her where the key was, saying Giovanni was on his way, and if he didn't tell her, he'd kill him. Giovanni indeed arrived outside, passing Arthur, who was still fighting Mirage and Flail alone and unable to beat them. Giovanni entered the workshop and asked Vulcan was the family game with Lisa fun. Vulcan got furious and Giovanni ordered him to give him the key. Vulcan shouted angrily, "I don't even know what key you're talking about. I don't have anything." Giovanni extended his hand and strangled you to make Vulcan talk. But Vulcan truly didn't know where the key was. Giovanni fired a bullet at you, saying, "I shot him in a bad spot, but he got some time left. You can still save him. Tell me where the key is." Vulcan gave the same answer, begging him not to take his family from him again. Giovanni got angry, hitting him repeatedly with his staff. Finally realizing Vulcan really knew nothing about the key, then destroyed Vulcan's favorite invention right before his eyes. Iris screamed at Giovanni to stop what he was doing. But after the invention was completely destroyed, a flash drive fell out of it. It was the Amaterasu key. Meanwhile, Shinra opened his eyes, finding himself tied up with Habana in front of him. She told him she activated the listening device she had placed on Iris. So, she came. She untied him and Shinra immediately rushed toward the workshop. As he approached, flying, he asked Arthur what the situation. Arthur replied, "Get inside the workshop quickly." Shinra dove at Mirage, vaporizing the fake copy and punching the real Mirage, dodging Flail and entering the workshop, kicking Giovanni Mask hard with his knee. Mirage created more clones surrounding Arthur, who grew annoyed from vaporizing them repeatedly. Suddenly, all the copies disappeared due to Habana arrival and her manipulation of air temperature. Lisa erupted magma from the ground, aiming it at Shinra. At the same time, Giovanni struck him with his launching mechanical hand. Lisa grabbed him and Giovanni kept hitting. Vulcan told Iris, "Press the buttons on the wall." Each button she pressed released mechanical animals from the ceiling that attacked Giovanni and Lisa. One of the robotic creatures hit Habona, disrupting her ability. At the same time, Lisa power also stopped because it worked through magnetic fields and the machines interfered. Shinra lunged at Giovanni, kicking him out of the workshop. He followed him outside, but suddenly felt the vibration in his leg again. Then looked ahead and saw Sho asking, "Are you the one who linked with me just now?" Shinra approached smiling with a joy Sho couldn't understand. Shinra excitedly asked, "You're Sho, my little brother, right?" Overjoyed, Shinra said finally, "I can fulfill my promise to Mom," telling him, "No matter what, I'll protect you and of course I'm on your side." Sho used a strange ability that made him appear behind Shinra in an instant, as if time itself had stopped, thinking to himself, "Now I understand what the evangelist meant when he said, I'd know when I met him, this man is my older brother. I feel disgusted." He quickly hit Shinra in the stomach with the back of his sword. Shinra fell to his knees and Sho placed his blade on his neck, saying, "You're coming with us." Abdullah burst user. Arthur ran toward him to save Shinra. Sho used his power again, instantly slashing Arthur's chest. Shinra stood up, but Sho immediately struck him again with the back of his sword, sending him to the ground. Shinra was confused that he couldn't even see the sword move, and then he lost consciousness. Sho ordered Mirage and Flail to take Shinra and kill the others. He asked where the device was. Joanny opened his mask, saying, "Here are the keys." Suddenly, Vulcan and the others arrived in a truck driven by Victor. They grabbed Shinra and Arthur. Despite what Lisa had done, Vulcan reached his hand out to take her with them, but she refused. In an instant, Sho appeared in front of the truck. Sensing an attack, he jumped aside quickly, and Joker appeared. They clashed briefly. Sho asked, "You're Joker, right?" Joker replied, "Looks like I'd become famous." Sho used his ability, moving at extreme speed, but surprisingly, Joker matched it. Sho told him not to interfere. Joker replied, "There's no fun in letting you or the Fire Force do whatever you please." When he saw the others had escaped, he left Sho and walked away. Sho stood there with his sword broken, surprised he had done that without even using an Adala link. Meanwhile, the others reached the hospital. Obi called the captain to inform him of everything that happened. Afterward, Obi went to sit beside Vulcan, comforting him, and asked him to come to the 8th Company headquarters since it would be safer for him. Vulcan agreed, saying, "There's nothing in this world that can't be fixed. You is strong and he'll recover well, and I'll bring Lisa back again." Shinra agreed with him, promising to help no matter what. At the same time, Habana stood with Victor suspiciously asking, "How did you show up at exactly the right time?" He replied, "I felt they were late, so I came to check." She said, "Maybe you were the one who brought those enemies with you." He answered, "Impossible. I'm the one who saved you." She threatened that if he did anything strange, she'd kill him. Later, they all went to the 8th Company headquarters and had lunch together. Captain Obi told Vulcan, "Maybe Shinra already told you, but our goal in the 8th Company is to save the planet and its people. I understand your family rules, but would you join the company?" Telling him, "You have every right to refuse." "Of course. Either way, we'll protect you, but think carefully." The next day, Vulcan went to the workshop, placing soda cans in front of his father and grandfather's grave, apologizing to them that he would break the family vow and join the Fire Force. After a few days, Kareem and Conroe came to the 8th Company headquarters to discuss with Obi and Habana the information they had so far and make a plan. Conroe started saying, "We only just learned about the Whiteclad group, so we still don't have much data." Obi told them about the Amichirazuki and Giovanni, explaining that Hayama announced someone had impersonated him wearing his mask and did all that, but Vulcan confirmed to them the man who attacked them was the real Giovanni. They concluded that Hayama said that to protect the reputation of their division. Prebiv said their crimes would only worsen, so they had to move and find their base. Obi replied that Victor from his team was already working on locating it, saying the 8th Company goal now was to pinpoint the evangelist location and strike. Habana sarcastically asked, "And you already have a plan for that attack?" Obi answered, "I've witnessed the strength of the new recruits in our company, but they lack experience, especially in close combat." Conroe said, "I have someone who does nothing in his life except fight." He called Shinman and asked him to train Arthur and Shinra. Meanwhile, Victor was in the forest collecting samples from traces of Whiteclad battles. Joker was with him asking, "So, you really joined the Fire Force?" Victor replied casually, "Well, we're heroes of justice now." Joker told him, "You won't be able to defeat them even if you find their base. The power their leader show has comes from a direct link with the evangelist." At the same time, Shinra entered Shirnan house. Suddenly, Shinman appeared behind him, placing a stick on his neck, saying, "If this were a real fight, you'd already be dead." He gave both him and Arthur their first advice. Never drop your guard. Arthur mocked him. So, Shinman threw the stick at his head. Back at the 8th Company headquarters, Vulcan showed Obi a device he built that extinguished flames using magnetic force. Then, we returned to Shinra and Arthur, who were tense, waiting for Shirnan to strike at any moment. He told them, "You can't afford to get nervous on the battlefield," then ordered them to fight him with killing intent. He began training with them, blocking all their attacks easily, saying, "Your power is decent, but like this, you'll never hit me. You need an element of surprise, a special technique." Shinra got excited, and Shinman hit him for letting his guard down. Victor entered, introducing himself to Shinman, telling him, "I have an idea for a special technique for Shinra, compressing and focusing his flames." Shirnan demonstrated the concept in front of Shinra, blasting backward with great force. Shinra was impressed, and Shinman told him to train with that. Then told Arthur, "You already have a special technique, but need to practice the basics. Attack me with killing intent." Conroe told Victor, "You don't seem like someone from the 8th Company. Are you really from Hayama?" Victor sarcastically asked him, "I too smart to be part of the 8th Company." Conroe threatened that if he ever hurt the 8th Company, he'd destroy him. Victor nervously replied, "Of course, I wouldn't dare." Shinra tried to compress the flames from his leg, but failed and crashed on his head. Thinking to himself, "I control my altitude with my toes, so if I move them, I lose balance. My facial expressions aren't helping either." He started thinking and tried again, watching Shinran fight Arthur, noticing Shinnan's specific hand movements that helped him control his flames. Meanwhile, Maki was playing with her cute fireballs. Inawa grabbed her head angrily, saying, "How many times have I told you a fire soldier doesn't play with flames?" She replied, "This time, I'm not playing." Vulcan interrupted, saying he had built 2 flying hammers with a slot where Maki could place her fireballs to control them. At the same time, Shinra tried using different hand and facial gestures to compress his flames, but they kept exploding. Shinran looked at him and came over, telling him to try again in front of him. Shinra did, and Shinman asked him to remove his gloves, explaining that hand signals take different shapes and each one affects differently. He showed him a specific gesture that strengthens the leg. Shinra tried it and it worked. He blasted into the sky instantly. Shinman watched him, and at that moment, Arthur attacked silently, but Shinman still blocked it. When Shinra landed, Shinran ordered him to attack with full strength. Shinra's strikes were now faster and sharper. As the sun set, Arthur was exhausted, so Shinran decided to end training. Days passed as they continued training until their power grew tremendously. The next day, Shinra and Arthur returned to headquarters. Captain Obi told the whole team they had found the White-clad base. Everyone was shocked to learn it was underground in a restricted area. Locals told stories to their children about how terrifying that place was. He told them, "We're going there tomorrow and our lives will be on the line." At sunrise, the company moved to the entry point leading underground. Shinra looked at Iris, worried, not knowing what might happen to her. When they arrived, they all stood before the gate, afraid to descend. Suddenly, the door opened by itself, and they all jumped in fear, but discovered Vulcan had stepped on the button. They entered cautiously where Yona and Mirage were waiting. Suddenly, thick smoke filled the area, blinding the team. Mirage created illusions of them to confuse and separate them. In the end, Captain Obi was left alone with Vulcan to Maki with Iris. At the same time, the white-clad informed show that the team had been scattered and Arrow moved to intercept them. Maki was alone and terrified. Flail appeared. With 5 knights, she calmed down, seeing they were humans, not ghosts. The first knight charged at her. So, she grabbed him, slamming his head into the ground. Then prepared her hammers that Vulcan had made. They fired rounds at her, but she blocked every shot with her hands. Realizing bullets were useless, they launched flaming rocks instead. She struggled but deflected them and sent her hammers flying, taking down 2 more knights. Another one rushed her and she struck him with her hand, finishing him with a blow to the head. Only Flail was left. He drew his massive hammer, charging at her. Maki dodged 2 swings, but the third came down hard. She resisted, controlling the flames, executed a pincer strike with her hammers, then quickly punched him in the stomach. One punch and both hammers disfigured his face, but he stayed standing, taunting her. She grabbed his head and smashed it into the ground with all her strength. At the same time, Captain Hein was walking through the smoke, ready for any attack. But suddenly, a strong flaming arrow hit him, melting his fireproof suit. He grabbed his gun and hid behind a stone pillar. Then heard Arrow voice saying, "The one with the Adala burst doesn't belong to you. Good thing you brought him to us yourselves. You saved us a lot of effort." He aimed toward her, asking, "What do you want from Shinra?" Meanwhile, Shinra found Victor being threatened by one of the white-clad knights holding a sword to his neck. Shinra made the hand sign he learned from Shinman. In an instant, he placed his foot on the knight and took him down. Afterward, he heard Hinua gunfire and decided to search for the others and fight alongside them. Inmai fired randomly since he couldn't see Arrow in the darkness, bouncing his bullets off the walls, hoping to hit her, but failing, Arrow shot an arrow at the pillar he hid behind. Realizing his position was exposed, he moved into a train car, running toward her from inside. Mirage and Yona watched, waiting for the right moment to attack Hinoa. Suddenly, Arrow fired again. So, Hinoa closed the train door, but the arrow force blasted it open. And so, he stood up and exited the train. Hinama hid behind another pillar and opened a case full of weapons. He grabbed a rifle and fired a powerful shot that shook the place, melting the gun barrel. He replaced it and fired again. Arrow kept firing her arrows, though bleeding from his shots. Both continued exchanging fire until Hinama could barely stand or open his eyes. He looked at Arrow, seeing her rise again, then looked at the 8th Company emblem on his shoulder, deciding not to give up and stood up. She released an arrow and he fired a bullet. He decided to let his bullet get close to her arrow and used his flames to boost its speed. Finally striking Arrow down. Exhausted, he leaned against a pillar. Fog gathered around him. Mirage and Yona appeared. Mirage drew a knife saying, "I'll finish you." Hinoa fired a bullet upward, then guided it with his flames into Mirage's forehead, but it was just missed. And the real Mirage appeared saying, "You missed." Hinoa replied, "No, I hit my target." The ceiling broke and Arthur fell through. Hinoa had seen a shadow through a hole in the ceiling. Mirage made more copies surrounding Arthur, sending them to attack, but Arthur's senses had sharpened. He no longer got nervous or distracted by illusions. He remembered Shinran training on sensing living presence. Mirage hesitated to attack. Suddenly, Arthur turned and sliced the pillar Hinawa was leaning on. Hinawa yelled angrily, "You'll kill me just to show off Dial." Arthur replied, "Don't worry, I'm not that stupid." Sensing Mirage behind the pillar sneaking to stab Hinawa from behind, Yona quickly fled the area. Elsewhere, Maki appeared before Tamaki and Iris, calming them since she was now with them and would protect them. Meanwhile, Dulcan and Obi encountered Giovanni and Lisa on their path. Lisa looked down ashamed, asking, "What are you doing here?" Giovanni replied, "I came to see you." "Of course," he said mockingly. "What wrong, feeler? Don't forget who cared for you and taught you to play with fire and with men. All you did was use what I taught you to get close to Vulcan." Lisa gathered her strength, forming magma tentacles shaped like an octopus, saying, "My real name is Feeler, and I am one of the White-Clad Knights." She attacked Vulcan, but Obi blocked with the magnetic sphere. Giovanni told him, "An ignorant and powerless man like you shouldn't be here. And like you, our evangelist knows everything. The cause of human combustion, the insects that trigger artificial ignition, the secret of the Adola burst inside Shinra, and the truth of what happened to this world in the past and what's happening now, and of course, I won't tell you any of it." Feeler grabbed Vulcan and Obi, squeezing them tightly. Giovanni laughed mockingly, saying, "Feeler's strength emerged because she's compatible with the insects." Feeler said, "My parents died in a fire caused by Infernals, and since then, I've been terrified of flames, but thanks to the insects, the fear disappeared, and fire started protecting me." Obi used the magnetic sphere, freeing himself and Vulcan, charging at Giovanni, but Feeler blocked him. He pulled out a fire extinguisher, spraying it over her magma. Feeler mocked him, yet he didn't stop using it. Suddenly, he pressed a button, detonating a compound under her that extinguished intense flames, shutting down all the magma she controlled. Vulcan caught her quickly before she fell. Feeler cried and Vulcan wiped her tears. But Giovanni terrified her again as usual, asking, "Who saved you, and let you stay with Vulcan," reminding her, "Don't forget you owe me." Forced by fear, Feeler stood apologizing to Vulcan, saying she couldn't betray the one who helped her after she lost everything. Suddenly, Giovanni tied her neck with a strong wire, throwing a gun to Vulcan, telling him, "If you want her to live, shoot Obi." Obi told Vulcan, "Do it." Vulcan got furious, promising Giovanni he'd kill him. He picked up the gun and shot Obi. Giovanni laughed cruelly, thinking he chose his friend over his captain. Releasing Feeler, Obi stood lifting the rods under Giovanni's feet. Giovanni said in shock, "Firefighter suits are fireproof, not bulletproof." Obi laughed and Vulcan replied, "I'd never let my captain go unprotected against bullets." Metal armor and a bird-like helmet extended from Vulcan outfit. He told Joanne, "Let's see which is stronger. Your invention or mine?" He charged swiftly, dodging Giovanni's shots and struck him hard, breaking him, then rushed to Feeler to check on her. Obi attacked Giovanni again, asking what's your goal and who is the evangelist. Giovanni replied, 250 years ago a great disaster occurred caused by the Adola burst. Obi said, "No matter the cause of human combustion, our mission is to stop it." Meanwhile, Shinra felt a strong vibration in his leg. Suddenly, the ground beneath him turned black and a dark skeleton touched him. Then from underground emerged the demon that had appeared in his house when he was a child, the one linking him and Sho. Shinra snapped out of the vision and saw black footprints on the floor. Realizing this was the path leading to Sho. At the same time, Giovanni told Obi the Adola burst within Shinra was now connecting to Commander Sho. Obi was shocked, asking, "What exactly is the Adola burst?" Giovanni replied, "The Adola burst is a special flame that can affect all forms of heat. It's a step beyond fire control, the eternal flame behind human combustion." Obi asked about the insects that turn people into infernals. Giovanni said, "They come from the same place where the Adola burst originated." Shinra reached Sho telling him, "I came just like I promised." Sho asked, "Promised who?" Shinra replied, "Our mother." Sho said, "I have no mother. The thought that we might be brothers disgusts me." Shinra got angry, moving closer, saying, "Don't talk like that about our mother." Sho pushed him and suddenly both vanished before Victor eased. Their clash was so fast he couldn't see them until suddenly Sho's sword was stabbed into the wall, pinning Shinra close. As Shinra held the blade, Sho continued striking Shinra. Shinra matched his speed, flipping and throwing him, diving in to follow, but Sho raised his sword, blocking him suddenly. Sho planted his sword in the ground. Stopping time then hit Shinra, slamming him into a pillar. Victor was shocked, realizing he had stopped time using heat, trying to figure out how that was possible until Sho said, "No matter how fast you are, you'll never match me because we exist in different universes." Victor was even more stunned. Understanding this meant Sho was using enough heat to expand the universe itself. Stopping time, terrified, he shouted to Shinra, "We have to escape now." Suddenly, the Adola link activated and Shinra and Sho were transported into a world with a black ground. Sho told Shinra the Adola burst is the original flame and still a mystery. But what you see here, this black ground and the black fire is connected to the Adola link. Shinra asked, so the Adola burst is a flame from this dimension. Then how do I have a flame from another dimension while I'm still on Earth? Sho replied, because it's an energy that can affect everything. Shinra asked angrily, you mean human spontaneous combustion is caused by this strange world we're standing in? Sho replied, yes. Suddenly behind Sho appeared a strange figure in white surrounded by a yellow ring. Sho said to Shinra, the person behind me is the evangelist. Shinra asked furiously, are you the one using Sho to burn humans? A vibration appeared in Sho's eye and they both returned to their original world. Sho drew his sword saying with the power of the evangelist and the link between us, I can influence anything. Your Adola burst could never match me. Shinra dashed at him, but Sho stopped. Time moving around him suddenly appeared beside him knocking him far away. Shinra got up and in a blink Sho's sword was against his chest. Shinra tried to grab the sword but Sho vanished and reappeared behind him kicking him. Then appeared in front again striking him in the face with the back of the sword. Vanished once more and came down from above stabbing his back. Even so, Shinra refused to give up and charged again. Sho kicked him slamming him into a pillar. Shinra stood again saying let's play a game of chase. The adult link showed an image of them as children playing together with incredible speed. Shinra managed to cut Sho's cheek. Sho was surprised and Shinra realized his speed would increase too if he gained the evangelist power like Sho. He launched himself again thinking how to obtain it. Sho struck him with the sword and Shinra barely stopped himself. But Sho followed hitting him again in the face with the sword back. Shinra tried recalling the vibrations he felt from Conro and Giovanni. Sho met him with a sword strike to the stomach. Shinra grew weaker but still advanced and Sho attacked again asking why keep going when you know this won't work. Shinra replied the image of your face as a child is chasing me then burst forward faster than ever before his body particles began to disassemble and at that instant Sho stopped time but didn't see Shinra anywhere and looked around confused realizing he might have entered his frozen world and suddenly Shinra crashed into a pillar breaking it because he couldn't control his new speed. Sho asked in shock, how did you do that? Shinra replied confidently. I think I'm close to reaching your speed. Another Adola link activated and Sho felt a headache, seeing another memory of Shinra playing with him when they were little. Shinra repeated the same move, breaking another pillar. Victor panicked because Shinra was moving almost at the speed of light. Terrified that if he continued, he'd reverse time and create a black hole, destroying the world. Yet his scientific curiosity and obsession made him stay silent to witness it happen. Shinra stood up and Sho stopped time again before he could repeat the move. Approaching to finish it but suddenly Shinra moved and punched him. Sho asked how did you do that without the evangelist power? Shinra replied it like what happened with Conro and Jaev. If my emotions are strong enough I can connect with you. You and Evangelist are linked so I'm linked to him indirectly. The two clashed again this time at equal speed and Shinra managed to wound him. But Victor and Yona couldn't see anything happening in front of them. Suddenly, Shinra stopped in place, bleeding heavily from his mouth. Victor called out to him, yelling, enough. If you overheat while using that ability, your body will break apart and you'll die. Shinra smiled nervously, and with fear, deciding he wouldn't stop until he achieved his goal. The battle between them continued, and with every clash, Shinra memories slipped into Sho's mind, showing him playing together when they were little. It grew stronger until Sho saw Shinra memories at school where everyone shunned him, calling him a demon, and his memories of joining the 8th Company and always thinking about him. Sho got angry, shouting, "What the point of showing me these memories?" "I'm not your brother," Shinru replied. "We're the same. How did we always smile when we were kids, and now we can't?" Sho said, "I have no past and I don't need one." At that moment, a memory appeared before him of himself as a baby, crying in front of the evangelist. He was confused because he had forgotten it completely. Shinra continued, 12 years ago, we were a family and we smiled all the time. We were happy until the fire broke out in our house. A memory of their mother appeared, saying, I love you both so much. Sho was shocked realizing that was his mother. Another memory came of him as a child crying because the wind blew a newspaper onto his face. Shinra came, removed it, and comforted him, saying, I'll never leave you. Sho cried as Shinra approached, placing his hand on his head, saying, I'm sorry for leaving you alone all this time. Hugging him and saying, let's leave this place and go to the light. But suddenly, Sho was shocked to see his sword had pierced Shinra's body unintentionally. He backed away terrified, and Shinra said, Don't worry, it's not your fault. Then a girl named Hamiha appeared, one of the evangelist followers who also possessed an Adola burst like Sho and Shinra. She said to Sho, we can't let him die because we need him, so I'll take him with me. Shinra shouted angrily. You're the ones who kidnapped Sho. What do you want to do with the Adola bursts? She replied, the disaster from 250 years ago failed. So, we're gathering the Adola bursts to try again. That's why we create fire users using the insects and search for more Adola bursts. We need both you and Sho for that. Yona appeared angrily, asking, why did you tell them? Homiya answered, it doesn't matter, even if they know they can't stop us. She ran towards Shinra to take him. But Sho stood in her way, saying, tell me what happened 12 years ago first. Homiya replied, make me tell you. Sho tried to stop time, but was shocked that it didn't, meaning the Adola link with the evangelist was severed. Homiya used a strange power that made him lose consciousness. Suddenly, he stood up again, still dazed, and walked forward. Shinra shouted angrily, what did you do to him? She pressed the sword, still stuck in him, saying, let leave this place. Suddenly, a bullet hit her back, but didn't harm her. It was Hinaba who fired it. Arthur rushed forward, slashing her away with his sword. Shinra warned him she uses a strange technique. Arthur replied, shut up so you don't die. Ha used her ability on Arthur, but it didn't work. Arthur mocked her, saying, a scare tactic. How pathetic. Fight me for real. Ha realized the plasma from his sword disrupted her electrical signals. Maki launched her hammers at her, but the electrical signals stopped them, too. Hinaba fired bullets to distract her while the others carried Shinra. Homiya sent an electric signal at Hinoa, but Arthur blocked it with his plasma blade. Homiya grew furious at him since she'd never met anyone who used plasma before. Suddenly, Obi smashed a column and dropped it on her, but she narrowly dodged. Then, a massive earthquake struck caused by the evangelist. The whole place began collapsing. Homiya left him and disappeared. They all escaped while the quake continued shaking all of Tokyo Shinra. Condition was critical. Obi tried to calm him, saying, we need to treat you first so we can find Sho again, telling Hinoa there's only one person who can save him. They took him to the Fire Force Medical Center to the best doctor in the world, a third-generation fire user named Kyoko. Before she entered the operating room, Obi asked, can you save him? She replied, honestly, his condition is severe. Even if he survives, he might be paralyzed. I've never treated a soldier with an Adola burst before, so I don't know what'll happen. Obi said, he's very precious to me. Please do whatever it takes. Kyoko entered first, removing the sword from his body. She told her assistants, I'm not sure I can heal this wound. It depends on his own flames. She used her ability, forming a serpent of blue fire on her hand and lowered it over him. After an hour, Shinra body ignited and Kyoko said, his flame is beautiful. There shouldn't be any problem. The Adola burst really is amazing. I used up all his flame for recovery, so it'll take a few days for him to wake. 3 days later, Shinra woke up pale and starving, but all he could think about was Sho. Captain Leonardo of the first company entered saying, I'm glad you're all right. Shinra asked, why are you here? Leonardo replied, I came to see you. Shinra was surprised he came all that way for a second-ass fire soldier from the 8th company. Leonardo said, I want to talk to you about the fire 12 years ago. Change your clothes and let's talk. He had brought him food, so Shinra ate quickly. Suddenly, Leonardo said, you've grown. Shinra looked at him sharply, replying, so, you knew me 12 years ago, and if I thought you're the firefighter who was holding my hand that day? Leonardo replied, yes, if I had told the truth about that fire, people wouldn't have blamed you for your mother and brother death, Shinra said. I don't care what happened to me. Did you know Sho was still alive? Leonardo answered. Yes, Shinra asked. And you knew the evangelist took him? He replied, yes. Shinra got furious, asking, then why didn't you save him? Why didn't you say anything? If I had known, I wouldn't have left Sho in the dark for 12 years. Leonardo pushed him back with fire, saying, you grew up after 12 years and still almost died. Imagine what you could have done if I told you then. Shinra said, I'm not the same person you met back then. Leonardo replied, if that's true, then show me. Dr. Kyoko assistant Asako Ogo came out along with 1st Company Lieutenant Onyango, and they saw Shinra attacking Leonardo. Leonardo was amazed by Shinra's speed, almost reaching the speed of light. Shinra kept attacking him with all his strength, but couldn't hit him even once. Asako shouted for him to stop because he wasn't fully recovered yet. But Onyango silenced her, saying none of them would listen while they were fighting. Leonardo started taking the fight seriously and surrounded himself with intense flames powerful enough to blow Shinra away. Shinra rushed at him again, but Leonardo blasted him back with his fire from afar, saying, the weak die easily and that's why I didn't tell you the truth. Then if you want to hear it, make me tell you. Shinra formed the hand sign and charged at him, but couldn't break through Leonardo while fire. Leonardo mocked him, saying, is that all you've got? You're like a tiny candle flame. Shinra got angrier, rushed even faster, broke through the barrier, and pressed his foot on Leonardo's arm, releasing fire. Leonardo asked, are you sure you won't regret hearing the truth? Shinra replied, I became a firefighter, even though I hate fire because I want to know the truth. Leonardo looked at the burn marks on his arm and acknowledged Shinra's strength, deciding to tell him the truth. He said, the group belonging to the evangelist you fought was already active 12 years ago. Back in the past, Maya was still a child standing on a rooftop near Shinra House with a man named Chiron who asked her, do you feel anything? She answered excitedly. The evangelist said, a new Adola burst will be born in this area. In the present, Leonardo said the cause of the fire was obviously not you. Shinra replied, right, there was a demon. But in the past, a flame entered baby Sho. Maybe Sho. And he ignited, burning down the entire house. Shinra began hearing his mother's screams telling him to run. That was when he saw a demon. But the shocking truth was that the demon was his mother. After Sho transformed her, and at that moment, Shinra third generation powers awakened. His mother searched desperately, calling for Sho throughout the burning house, and found him in the evangelist's hands. From the evangelist's terrifying power, she felt excruciating pain and burning in her eyes. So she tore off her horns and placed them over them. That's why all the evangelist followers keep their eyes covered. In the present, Shinra was shocked that the demon he'd hated his entire life and wanted to destroy was his own mother. He asked Leonardo, what happened to my mother? Leonardo said, I arrived at the scene. 15 minutes later, strangely, the flames there wouldn't die down no matter how much water we used. Then, Leonardo felt his right eye, the one covered by the bandage, react to the fire. He ordered his entire unit to go in and search for survivors. And they found Shinra, who told them Sho and his mother were still inside. Homo was on the roof controlling Shinra mother with electrical signals to make her bring Sho to her. When Leonardo entered and saw the demon, his right eye ignited, and immediately the demon emerged carrying Sho heading toward Homia. Leonardo and his team escaped with Shinra. He thought angrily to himself. Demon and Adola burst. The flame in my right eye. The same as when I saw the light in the other world and burned. Why do they want that little boy? He looked at Shinra's legs, seeing he had awakened his flames, but they were still weak. Shinra kept screaming for his mother and brother. Leonardo stood before him saying, your mother and brother are dead. Back to the present. Shinra asked, why did you lie to me then? Leonardo said, to keep you away from it. At some point they might have come for you. I told you that lie so you'd fear the flames, hate them, and never use your powers, keeping you away from this world. Shinra replied sadly, I still hate it even now. Leonardo turned to leave, saying, I've done what I came for. Shinra stopped him, asking, did you know about the Adola link? Leonardo said, yes, and my right eye was the price I paid to see the flame of destruction. Shinra asked, the demon that appeared 12 years ago, did it have horns coming from its eyes? Leonardo said yes. Shinra asked, where did my mother go? He answered, I haven't seen her since that day. Shinra thought he could see his mother again through the Adola link and wondered how to activate it. Then remembered he saw fourth company, Captain Ogo, in the other world. Asako approached him and he remembered her surname was Ogo. He asked, do you know Captain Ogo of the fourth? She replied, yes, he my grandfather. He asked, can I meet him? She agreed. A few weeks later, Vulcan arrived in his truck to take Shinra back to the company. The whole way, Vulcan talked, but Shinra couldn't respond. Vulcan said, even if you want to be quiet with me, don't act like that around the others. They're all worried about you. I know you're thinking about your brother, but you're not alone. Shinra smiled genuinely. When they arrived, he first greeted Iris warmly, then met Maki in the hallway, who was relieved to see him. After that, he joined Arthur and Tamaki. Inoa opened the door, saying, I'm glad to see you. And immediately handed him work. Shinra entered Captain Obi's room, saying, I've returned to duty. He gave him a report about Ogo and Leonard's story, asking permission to meet the fourth company. Captain Obi asked, if we assume Captain Leonardo's story is true, that means the evangelist group was involved in your family incident. Shinra said, it's not easy for me to believe that the demon I've been chasing all my life is my mother, Obi asked. And if she really is, Shinra replied, then I'll find a way to turn the Infernals back into humans again.